Um, Welcome to the August 28th, 2018 City of Menlo Park City Council meeting. I'm Peter Otake. I'm honored to serve as mayor this year. To my right, we have Council Member Rich Klein. To my left, Vice Mayor Ray Mueller. Also to my left is Council Member Kirsten Keith. Councilmember Catherine Carlton is absent and traveling, unable to be reached. Over at that table, we have our city attorney, Bill McClure, and next to him will be city manager Alex McIntyre, who's just walking in the back door. Over on this side, we have our city clerk, Judy Aaron, and what I want to make sure you all know, if you'd like to speak on a topic this evening, we welcome you to do so. Please kindly fill out a card on the back of the table, speaker's card, and write on it what item on the agenda you'd like to speak on, and please give it to Judy, and she will kind of get that organized for us so we can proceed smoothly. If I can ask you all to rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I have a couple of announcements to make. First of all, regarding the Willow 101 interchange construction update. The weekend closure of the Willow Road 101 overpass that was originally scheduled for September 14th to 17th has been postponed. Unforeseen construction issues caused unavoidable delays. Weekend closure of Willow Road and traffic switch at the bridge is tentatively scheduled for either the last weekend of September or the first weekend of October. An informational item is scheduled to be on the agenda for the September 11th, 2018 City Council meeting with more information. Outreach will be performed as soon as the date is set, and I hope we'll be putting our mobile signs out to make sure that drivers and our residents are aware of that construction change. Also, let's see. I will, Bill, I'll go ahead and read this, but so the next announcement is regarding the public hearing item G1, which is on the 840 Menlo Avenue. After a lot of back and forth between the city attorney, applicant, and the appellant, it has been agreed that tonight's public hearing on the two items will be continued to a future date, likely October 23rd, to allow staff to consider the alternative loading zone proposed by the 840 applicant on Menlo Avenue, review and consider the hundreds of pages of additional materials submitted by the applicant, the appellant, and various other parties, and then to take the loading zone alternatives back to the Complete Streets Commission with additional information and analysis by staff, likely the October 10th commission meeting, so that the Complete Streets Commission can have their input recommendation before this returns to the City Council. The appellant has agreed to waive time so that the Planning Commission action will not become final for failure of the City Council to act tonight. Having said that, if any of you are staying or wish to speak on the matter tonight, we will entertain public comment, but I wanted to let you know that our deliberations and the actual item will be continued again to a future date. So we wanted to make sure and announce that right up front at the start of the meeting. All right, at this point, and Bill, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything to that. Was that?
No, we just will call the item at the time that it appears on the agenda, and then if someone would like to speak tonight, they can. But There may be changes to the staff presentation. There won't be a staff presentation. There won't be an applicant or an appellant presentation tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. All right, so item D, public comment. Under public comment, the public may address the City Council on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the City Council once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or political jurisdiction in which you live. The City Council cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the City Council cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Let's see, we have a couple speakers here I see on the screen. Daniel Valverde, welcome, followed by Jen Willison. Daniel, nice to see you. Good evening again this evening.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I know public comment is reserved for making a comment what's not on the agenda, but there's 2 items on the agenda. I want to make it quick and get out of your hair. So my name is Daniel Valverde, and I'm here on behalf of the Housing Leadership Council. Our mission is to work with communities and their leaders to create and preserve quality, affordable homes. First of all, the Housing Commission has been doing an excellent job in the recent months, working to create a tenant relocation assistance ordinance. Due to the exponential job growth in Menlo Park, it's crucial that this council supports a tenant protection of this sort to help curb the displacement that continues to happen every single day. Secondly, we want the council to acknowledge the overwhelming community support to see affordable housing as part of the new library renovation development. Please do not move forward with the main library unless there's housing on it. This is a great site, and the opportunities that will bring to the families are life-changing. We have the opportunity here and now to start to solve. We have the opportunity here and now to start to solve income inequality. We have to start by building affordable housing in the neighborhoods with top-notch schools and good access to jobs. We continue to ask for your political leadership to move forward with a vision that's bold, extraordinary, and innovative. Please include housing with the main library renovation. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Jen Willison, followed by Courtney Powell. Hi, Jen.
Good evening, Council. I'm going to read comments tonight to shake things up. About more than 2 years ago, I came to you, 5 or 4 of you, as a Laurel mom. I'd put together an ambitious Safe Routes to School plan for the soon-to-be-opened Upper Laurel campus. I called it the Laurel Connector Bike Plan. Among its suggested safety improvements included stop signs to be installed at Central and Walnut and O'Connor and Elliott Drive. On May 7th of this year, a child was hit at Central and Walnut. Yesterday, a child was hit at O'Connor and Elliott. Thank God both of these kids only sustained cuts and bruises and emotional trauma, unfortunately. Even though the plan I created contained some really good ideas, it wasn't perfect, and I shifted my attention to lobbying you, the City Council, to develop your own plan. It got added to your list, your work plan. 2 years have gone by since I showed up with this plan. The project that you approved keeps getting delayed. In the meantime, the neighborhood is desperate for attention. The Willows has submitted petitions for turn restrictions to curtail cut-through traffic and stop signs at the very location on Central I pointed out 2 years ago. As a Safe Routes advocate, here's a sample of what we need to do. We need crossing guards at key locations. Willow Road has no crossing guard. The city must get into the business of crossing guards. It's the easiest way to implement and the lowest cost way to make our intersections safe for kids. This should happen tomorrow. City transportation staff should be working on safety issues, not parking lots and non-residential development projects. Where are our priorities? A decision on what it's going to be. Are we going to spend our time on comprehensive plans or free-for-all scrambles? Should we all just spend our time getting petitions of angry parents signed for various infrastructure projects, a bike lane here, a sidewalk here, a stop sign there? If that's how resources are going to be allocated, then please make it clear so we can all play by the same rules. Are we going to prioritize by the loudest voice in the room, or are we going to stick to plans? we're developing the transportation master plan. Is that something that we're going to be using, or is it just a matter of who sends in the latest petition? Safe routes to school is a top 6 priority for the city, but it doesn't feel that way. I know there's encouragement maps in the works and a part-time coordinator will be hired, but school is back in session and it's really scary out there, and we need this to be a real priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Courtney Powell, followed by Adina Levin. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, City Council. I'm here tonight to talk about housing at the proposed downtown library project, which I understand isn't on the agenda and is actually going to be pushed until next year. I think many folks you've heard over the past few months, and even tonight, Daniel talked really eloquently about why housing is so important at this site. It's really unique that we have the opportunity to build housing that can be affordable, that can be downtown, close to transit, give people the opportunity to utilize Caltrain and our bus infrastructure on El Camino in order to get places rather than having to take their cars, and that way we can cut down on our massive traffic problem. We can also provide housing because this is city-owned land that is affordable, and we can develop a complex that integrates people into the fabric of our communities, close to schools, close to resources, close to downtown where there are more amenities. Housing, as was mentioned in the staff report, is something that has come up, and the staff report even says there's enthusiastic support for housing and some opposition, but it was eventually decided that housing wouldn't be considered as part of the project because it would be too tumultuous, it would delay the project too much. And I'm here looking at the project getting pushed, another 6 months in advance, and just think that this is actually the perfect opportunity to talk about housing, to have the conversations that we need to have as a community to figure out how we can get this project moving down the line with providing supportive, affordable housing for our community as part of it. And I think that I urge you to utilize this delay and this, pushback of the schedule in talking about the library project to solicit more community feedback, to take action on proposed housing alternatives for the project, and to really consider this issue more in depth. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Adina Levin. Good evening, Adina. Welcome.
Hello, good evening. My name is Adina Levin, and I am here representing, with my nonprofit hat, Friends of Caltrain, supporting sustainable transportation on the Peninsula Corridor, and also something that is of interest to the multimodal committee that I sit on the Complete Streets Commission. Not speaking for the committee, but in terms of the topic of interest. I was disheartened to get an email today that said that due to staffing issues at the shuttle provider, that the shuttle was being canceled until further notice. And this is something that the city has really worked on in terms of wanting to have shuttle routes to give opportunities for people who do not drive, elderly, youth, and so on, and to provide mobility options for people to get around town without driving and parking. And it is really dismaying that because of a problem with a contractor that the program is canceled for now. If you think about other public services that the city offers, whether it be library services or, landscaping services to deal with issues with trees, a whole range of public services. What public services would we say, hey, we have stopped, we've closed the library because we do not have enough people to work at the library? That would be really seen as a shocking and very unwelcome outcome, and I would encourage you to take this very seriously and to seek to get that service moving as soon as possible, because this is a really dismaying reduction in an important city service. Thank you.
Thank you, Adina. And just on Adina's last point, Alex, will we have at some point an update on that, the shuttle? I did see the announcement as well. And
We can bring you something at your next council meeting, just as an info item with more details, and particularly when we expect to maybe restart it. It does have, the common conversation around here is staffing. But the shopping, this is the midday shuttle, not the shopper shuttle, so it's only one of the two shuttle programs where we operate.
okay, great. Thank you. All right. I don't see any other cards or speakers for public comment. Thank you for those who spoke. So regarding closed session, we don't have a report from closed session on any particular action taken during closed session. Next, we will have the Housing Commission report. We have Housing Commissioner Meg McGraw-Scherer will present. There she is. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. So I'm really happy to be here tonight to talk to you guys about what we've been up to. I realize that I don't think you guys have gotten an update since Michelle and I gave you one in May of last year, so it's been a long time. So I'm really honored to be here to talk to you guys about what we've been up to. So we did a little slideshow here for you guys to help out with this. So I wanted to just remind you of a couple things that have happened in the last couple of years, which have been really wonderful changes at the commission level and things that you all allowed us to do. First of all was to allow us to expand from 5 to 7 members. It's allowed us to get a lot more work done. We also decided to make our meetings monthly. Again, something that allowed us to get more work done. We had been, when I started on the commission, we were meeting quarterly. So we now have 7 people on the commission, and we feel like we're kind of starting to get things moving. So what we wanted to do was just go ahead and first kind of give you a summary of some of the things that we've worked on. So at almost all of our meetings, we're looking at the BMR agreements, so the agreements that different developers are entering into as part of the development of their project, and we'll look at those before they go to the Planning Commission. So we are doing that. We took a look at the 12-month lease ordinance that you all passed. We also drafted the next NOFA document. That is actually sitting with city staff now, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. We also completed 2 rounds of BMR guideline updates, and we're working on a 3rd, and again, I'll talk about that in a minute. The other thing that we did, which has been really powerful in terms of looking at things more closely, is we implemented kind of a subcommittee structure, and I'm going to go through that in a minute, and that's allowed us to divide the workload and to do work outside of the commission meetings. We have begun work on a tenant relocation ordinance, which actually I don't think we have listed up here right now. I'm going to talk about that later. We've started work on that, but it's something I want to talk about in a little bit more depth in a minute. The other thing that we've done quite a bit of work on, and because you see us come to the meetings, is we're trying to advocate for housing here in Menlo Park, affordable housing. Related to that was advocacy around the library remodel, and also talking about housing as part of any sort of parking structure project that you guys might be considering. We're also really interested in seeing more inclusionary units in large developments. One of the big projects that was approved, the 500 El Camino project, we really wanted to see more units in that project, and that's something that was pretty important to me, and I felt like that was a lost opportunity. So we're just kind of trying to be aware of what's going on in the community and letting you know how we feel, and hoping that you'll take our input as much as you are able. So I wanted to talk just a minute about the subcommittees. We have right now 5 of them. And two of them have actually been disbanded. So we had 2 other ones. One was the Nexus study, which we looked at and spent a lot of time working that through. It's still sitting in our committee because kind of what we want to make sure is something that will be palatable for council. But our committee worked really hard on looking at the fee schedules and reviewing the document, the Nexus study document. We also had a BMR Housing Guideline Committee, which was working on on the previous BMR guideline updates. We're working on the third round right now. And I'm going to talk a little bit more in a minute about why we're looking at this still. We have a policy committee, which looks at things that are kind of current things that are happening around, like the library remodel, housing downtown, any other sort of issues that pop up over time. We just added a new one on marketing and outreach, and we wanted to do something along that line around making sure that people in the community know what the resources are here in Menlo Park, and trying to think of ways to make that information get out there more easily. So we're still working through that. I think that'll be a really nice addition to our subcommittee grouping. And then the last one is the notice of funding availability, and that was what we did through that. And there's not much going on there right now because we did our work, which was we looked at the previous NOFA, and we spent a lot of time marking it up, trying to figure out the best way to improve it, to make certain projects eligible, how to, basically how to make decisions around how the money should be allocated. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to talk about briefly was, I don't know if you all remember, but we had put together, and you guys approved this enhanced housing policy priority list that we were given tasks to work on, and we talked about that last May. And so I just wanted to give you an update on that. We did 3 priority buckets, 1, 2, and 3. And the first priority bucket we've done quite a bit of work on. And so we just wanted to give you a status update on that. The first one, unfortunately, we haven't done much on, and that is around looking at reduced parking requirements for affordable units within close proximity to transit. And it's not because we don't think it's important, it's just something that we've felt like we needed a little bit more guidance and staff help on that. And as you know, the staffing right now, it's been difficult with Jim and Megan leaving, and thank goodness we have Clay, he's been wonderful, but we understand there's not as much capacity. So we think we need to do some more research and to get that moving. We were able to do work on the BMR guidelines, as I indicated. We have those 2 items listed. We're in progress on the first one listed around allowing BMR homeowners to sublet rooms to BMR renters. That'll be part of the BMR update that we're going to be working on, the third one. We've now spent 2 meetings looking at the tenant relocation assistance ordinance idea, and that's something that, again, I'll finish talking about when I get to our priorities that are in front of us right now. We've passed the Home for All resolution. You all passed that. Thank you so much. And we have started promoting home sharing programs that through the HIP housing. There's more work to be done on that. Megan was working on that for us, doing a great job. We did get a banner across downtown, and we're hoping to, through the marketing and outreach committee, to do more work on that, because it's a great way to provide units at a pretty low cost, and it helps the homeowners too. So then the last one here is preservation of market affordable units. That is something that we were considering and putting in as part of a qualifying use of NOFA funds. So that's in the NOFA, and that would be for apartment buildings that are already offering fairly affordable rents. They decide they want to sell. Potentially a nonprofit could buy that building and preserve those rents. So we wanted to make sure that was an eligible use under the NOFA. We then have priority 2 and priority 3. Priority 2, the only thing that are in progress on that is the first hire program, and that's something that we included in the NOFA. The top one is one we find that's very important, the whole looking at secondary dwelling or mother-in-law units, but there's a lot more work involved in that one, and looking at setbacks and things like that. And so that's something that's on the top of our priority list to start working on. We just have been delayed on that. And then the idea of a displacement fund, that would require another Nexus study, so we haven't been able to delve into that yet. Not that we don't think it's important, because I personally do. The priority 3 projects are things that we have not necessarily thought were it had as much bang for their buck in terms of the way we spent our time. Things like the mandatory non-binding mediation, the anti-retaliation ordinance, rental housing best practices, they're all great, but they're not going to be terribly effective, so we haven't spent time on them. The rental housing rehab loans and grants, again, there's not really a lot of money for that, so that's not been something that we've focused on either. The one that I'm very interested in and looking at a little more closely, but will require some research, is the impact of the Airbnb here in the city, and whether or not that is something that's taking up potential units that could be for rent or for permanent housing. And I personally haven't heard much about it as it being a problem. I know it's a problem in a lot of communities, but we're not sure yet, so it's something we'd like to spend some time researching just so we're aware of what's going on there. Okay, so now my last slide, which is my push and my kind of what I want to ask of you all to consider, and is these next couple items. So the first one is the NOFA. We were able to go ahead and spend a lot of time working on that, and we got that to city staff, and that was in March, and then Jim left in April. And so we understand it's a staffing issue, but we really, really want to get some staff time put on that, because we really want to get the money out on the street for people to apply for the funds. And I know that there's been some discussion with the county around lending those funds to the county so that they can get the money out to projects that are shovel ready, but I feel super strongly that money needs to be spent here in Menlo Park, and how do we even know if it can be spent if we don't put the NOFA out? So I'd love to see city staff time being used towards that next step. I don't think there's that much more to do to get it out, but I think it's really important, and I've wanted to see that since I got on the commission 2 years ago. So if there's anything that you guys can do to help us with that, that would be really, really wonderful. The next thing I just wanted to let you know about, which I've mentioned a couple times, is the tenant relocation ordinance. We've spent 2 meetings going through this, and we're still working on it, and now we're really excited that we've scheduled some community input meetings. We, in absence of being able to do a just cause eviction, rules and rent control, we feel like this is something that's imperative, and I'd love to know if the council has any changed views on those things, because we have a real problem in our community with people losing their homes and their rentals, and we just want to do anything we can to help people. So this is something that we're working on. We're really excited about the community meetings on September 12th and 13th to see if we can get some more input on that. And then the next item is just the advocacy for affordable housing downtown. This is probably, to me, one of the most important things that we can do. There's so many communities on the peninsula that do have affordable housing near their downtowns, where there's transportation, services, access to schools, shopping. It reduces, car traffic. It's just a win-win everywhere. And we have 2 potential opportunities to do this, because where we live is so expensive. For it to happen, we really need to have access to public land so that the land can be part of the package for doing the housing. So we think it's imperative that you consider either the housing as part of the library remodel, or consider looking at some of the parking lot space downtown. Ironically, I just got a new project that I'm working on with a developer down in San Mateo, and what they're going to do is their San Mateo Commission, they did an RFQ for a developer to come in and build a new parking structure, and then next to it, in their old flat parking, surface parking, is going to be affordable housing. So, it's being done, and so I think it would be super amazing if we did that here in Menlo Park. The last 2 things I just wanted to mention was we've had some thoughts about maybe hosting some community meetings to do some presentations on housing and public spaces. I mean, I understand I've been doing this for over 20 years. It's my passion, and a lot of people don't understand how this works, and maybe if we could do some things to bring in some, to inform people, that might be helpful. So it's something we've been batting around as something we could do here at the Housing Commission could host. So that's one of our ideas for this next year. And then the last thing is the BMR guideline update. We have a couple people on the commission who are super active working on this, which is, they've spent so much time on this. It's so awesome. And there's lots of little things that we think we can do to make the guidelines stronger. But I just want to mention, too, so you kind of know what we're thinking about. We see a lot of the BMR agreements come to us where there's just a lot of vagary around the unit sizes that are going to be dedicated for the BMR units and the income targeting. And our feeling is that the unit mix should reflect the unit mix of the greater property, and we feel like there should be some more guidance in terms of the affordability targeting. So that's just two examples of some of the things that we think would be important changes to make. So that is my little report. I would love to answer any questions you have, and I would also love to know if there's anything that you all are thinking about in terms of housing that you would like the commission to be looking at that I didn't go through. So thank you.
Thank you, Meg. I see a couple lights on. I didn't know who went first. Councilmember Keith?
Good evening. Thank you so much, Meg, for giving that great presentation on all the work plan and what you guys are doing. I know you're working really hard, and really appreciate it, because as we all talk about, and we've heard public speakers already, the housing crisis is here. I agree on the NOFA. I'm just going to go down kind of the list.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah.
The NOFA, I think we do need to get that out, and it is unfortunate that it was probably about to go out when Jim left. I think we will see people come forward wanting to utilize that money, and so I'm excited to see that happen. The BMR guideline updates are great. The tenant relocation ordinance, I have met with some commissioners on the Housing Commission about this and heard more, and I look forward to having it come forward to us. On your asks, so issue the NOFA, yes, let's get the money out on the street. Spend the money in Menlo Park. I think we will find, and you do this work professionally.
Right.
Yeah, so you're pretty confident also that...
Well, there's also a lot of money that's now being released at the state level. So the money is starting to flow again. So you need money from all different pots, but I mean, once you put the money out there, I'm pretty confident there's going to be people very interested in accessing it and building housing here.
And I know, Alex, I'll go to you, I guess, on this one. Do you think we can get this out soon? Or what are your thoughts on getting this out?
So I think in my last conversation with Clay, I thought this thing was almost teed up and ready to be released. I'm looking in the audience. There you are, Mark. Oh, there you are, Clay. Thank you. So I think it's teed up for September, October to be released. I'm getting a nod. So yeah, we are close to ready to go. We do need staff then to work with the responses and whatnot. So there'll be a process.
Right.
Great.
Okay. So maybe September, October. All right. The tenant relocation assistance ordinance, I just wanted to give you a plug for your 9/12 and 9/13. Do you want to just say where and when those meetings will be?
Yeah, I think, Clay, you should repeat me. I think the 12th is going to be in Bellhaven somewhere, right? And then, do you want to say, I'm sorry, I don't know the exact locations, but we want to do them on different sides of town so that everybody had an equal chance to attend.
Sure. Good evening. The September 12th meeting will be at the Senior Center from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. And the next meeting is on the 13th, the very next evening, here in the council chambers, same time, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m.
Okay. And who's presenting? You, Meg? Will you be presenting there?
We haven't sorted that out yet. Okay. I think probably there's a couple other commissioners who are much more well-versed in the language and have been working with legal aid, and so I'm guessing those people will be involved as well.
Great.
The commissioners, because they know
I think that's really important. And then the advocacy for downtown parking structure, potential library, and I think access to public land is important, and I think that it would be useful for you to have, you talked about having workshops. I think it is useful to have that to explain that this is happening. And you mentioned San Mateo as one place where the affordable units are going in. And then I can also point to San Carlos they're building a parking structure now behind Laurel, behind the businesses on Laurel, that will have parking and then housing on top of that.
That's great.
It is not uncommon for cities to be using public land to create housing. And I agree that if we had a site here that it would be close to transit, it could be very beneficial. So I hope that you will look at those ideas too. And then on the BMR guideline updates, thank you for telling us about the unit size and the income targeting. I think those are important things too. So, I mean, all the things that you're doing are really crucial right now. And I'm glad that you guys have such a great working group of 7 people now. And thanks for putting the time into this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Mueller.
Yeah, there's no reason to go over all of that again. I just want to say I support getting the NOFA out as soon as we can. I think that's important. So that's all.
Yes.
It's an exceptional report, and the amount of work that's been put in. I have voicemails from Karen, just trying to get updates. I mean, you guys have been moving just at a rapid pace for months, and so it's a huge appreciation because we are thin on staff and kind of scrapping with volunteer help. So I am just very grateful. Thank you.
Thanks, council member.
And I'll also add to those thanks. Definitely appreciate. I remember last year we put a lot on your plate, and you guys have risen to the occasion, and we definitely appreciate the time that you're spending. Definitely concur about having some workshops about housing in public lands. It's probably not a surprise to you, but when we went through in 2012, when we went through the final stages of the downtown specific plan process, there was a lot of angst around putting housing on the parking lots, with a garage, without. I mean, I don't think, actually, I think there was a scenario about parking on the garage, and it was more about this, the height and the, trying to keep the downtown character, which was sort of viewed as keep it 3 stories. There's all these things. So now, I think attitude has changed a lot, obviously, and I think there's more interest. But circling back, the key is having the workshops and helping to both inform and get feedback from the public. I think we might be able to come up with something that might be workable. The other aspect, so we did make a change in the BMR code regarding BMR units, that they could be either smaller or the idea was we had one of the projects that came to us when the BMR ordinance previously had it as equal, the same size, same finishings as the other units. They were costing, I think, $400,000 to build each. They were the developer was losing somewhere in the order of $300,000 each. They were going to lose $1.6 million on building the ones that the units, the BMR units, and we wanted to incentivize the creation of the units, and they had more of an incentive to pay the fee because the cost was so high. So the idea was to try and give some flexibility that would then encourage the creation and inclusion, building of units, BMR units in a market rate, development. So the point of that is to keep that in mind. That was a reaction at that particular time. There may be a way to create a innovative formula that allows that incentive. And I'm just providing some input as you all continue to do that work. So hopefully that gives you at least a little more input from past experience. So,
okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Overall, again, thank you. Appreciate the time and effort that you're putting in it, and certainly look forward to as those results start coming back to us. We appreciate it. So,
thank you, Council.
Thanks, Meg. All right, next we have the consent calendar, and we have several grand jury reports. I know I have some edits on F2, which is on pension costs. Are there any other changes or comments or any items that you'd like to pull off of the consent calendar other than F2?
I'll move approval, if not, of F1 through, make sure I get them all, F5.
Okay, F1 through F5 excluding F2.
Right.
Got it. And is there a second? Okay, Councilmember Keith has seconded.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. Hopefully we can make F2. So the topic is the response to the San Mateo County Grand Jury Report, soaring city pension costs, time for hard choices. Vice Mayor Mueller.
I actually was going to say this is I was hoping that we might be able to bring this back as a study session item. So I'm not sure that it seems to me that this is some of these questions specifically where we are, our answer is agreeing in part but disagreeing in part really requires a more in-depth analysis of the council before we endorse it. So if it's possible to come back as a study session item that we could go ahead with advance notice to the public that we're actually going to be diving in, that would be great.
So I believe there is a response date.
Right. We have a 90-day window of time to respond, and this, I believe, came in June, if memory serves me right. It may be July. I'm not remembering.
According to the staff report, it's not due until mid-October.
Okay. All right.
Okay. If we can, I mean, I would be fine. I think I know we're going to have a lot on the following agendas, but I think if we started earlier for a study session on this, that probably might be doable if so. Yes, Lenka.
If I may, included in the recommendations in response to the findings was to include John Bartel and Associates, who has come before the council before to discuss the pension
Bartel
costs.
and Associates, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so we're in talks with him, hoping to bring him here in November before you. But in talking with him, we didn't think we could get him here in time to do a study session that would include him and respond by the October 16th due date.
All right. I think it still might be useful to have a study session even though we don't have Bartel and Associates, and I also know some of the responses, particularly when it came to long-range options, long-range forecasting, are highly dependent on Bartel and Associates having a presentation and some time. So I don't think, well, I can't speak for Vice Mayor Mueller. I don't think he contemplated answering those in the study session. I think the view is there's some of these others. I'll give you just an example. Under the F11, which is one of the line items in there says paying down unfunded liabilities early results in large savings. And in our answer, we didn't include that, and I would add that the city paid down the safety side fund unfunded liability by $7 million in 2011, which resulted in saving $4.3 million of interest expense. However, paying down current unfunded liabilities doesn't generate as many savings. There was, I know we've looked at it in previous years, and I don't know the right way to word it, but I wanted to give you that input so that when we come back with the study session, I think we can have some of those where we can spend a little more time with that. Under item R1, where one of the bullet points that we didn't have, or I didn't see in here, was that the different bargaining units, our unions, have all agreed back in 2009 or 10, since 2009 or 10, have agreed to share some of the costs on the employer side. And hard work that you guys did, so we appreciate that, and we're one of the early cities to do that. And I also felt that in the in the actual grand jury report, they dealt with that. They had a table on Menlo Park, and in really fine print it said, doesn't include cost sharing, with a footnote like 94, and you go down the footnote, and then it says, well, but cost sharing would only save like 5%, and I can't believe that's, I have questions about those numbers. So I wanted at least, again, that's something that might be useful for the study session. R3 response, I also wanted to, also, again, the city has implemented cost sharing with all unions, and we've also had discussions, at least in the Finance Audit Committee, about setting up we have already set up a reserve, but also we have had discussions in the Finance Audit Committee about setting up a Section 115 trust that hasn't yet come to council, but is, staff is considering. So, and again, the Section 115 trust is mentioned as one of the bullet suggestions under R3. So, those were my edits and suggestions, and it sounds, if I'm going to look at my colleagues, are you guys okay if we then bring that back in a study session? We'll start a little bit earlier. I know Alex is kind of cringing because we got some pretty full schedules coming
Right,
up.
and I was just actually trying to figure out on the calendar where this might fit. Just for clarity, to make sure the expectations are delivered on, assuming we can get back by the 16th, is the study session would not be members of the grand jury or anyone representing the point of the grand jury. It would just simply be, I assume, a conversation, maybe point by point, with regards to our response, and then maybe if there's clarity from the dais or clarification from staff that we can offer. I just want to be clear what the expected outcome. What should we be looking forward towards this study session?
Yeah, so first let me mention that Councilmember Klein was suggested this is a 30-minute item.
Okay.
And Vice Mayor Mueller, I can see you had some thoughts on
I
it.
agree with that. So the reason why is basically on the points, on the issues. I really want to go through the issues where we are adding, what's the word here? Basically where we're adding extra information. I want to go through them. I want to understand them. And I think it's a good opportunity for us to sharpen where we are going into our conversation with Bartels.
So this is purely, again, to be clear, walking through the response as it's drafted, say, today, enhancing it the way perhaps the mayor had suggested, and any other enhancements from the council.
But very frankly, too, I mean, this is an opportunity for us to look at what the grand jury is pointing out and see if there's valid criticism that we need to consider. Talk with Bartels. This is a rare opportunity to go ahead, provide our work product to the other jurisdictions in the county, and also review what the grand jury has looked at. I think we ought to take a little more time in order to do that.
Okay.
So I envision like a slide. Each slide has what the recommendation is from the grand jury and what our response, what our draft response is, and it sort of allows us to go step by step through the report and consider our response. So.
Okay.
And to the extent there's some tables that from the report that are applicable, obviously we'd put that up. But I think that might be a structured way that we can go through.
And that's great. It's great to hear that feedback, and we'll make sure we build the presentation that way for the conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Councilmember Keith.
Thank you. Yes, I concur with this. I think it's a great idea. I don't think we've done this. I think the last time we brought somebody in was probably early in 2017, and to talk about our pension liability issues. So I think it's a perfect opportunity. I would like you to also talk about, the 10-year forecast as well. Thanks.
Through the chair, Mr. Mayor, Nick Pigueros, Assistant City Manager. I just want to highlight that much of the analysis that the council has received in the past, as you may recall, was actuarial work that was done by John Bartel, our independent actuary. Staff does not have the actuarial certifications nor the ability to prepare an analysis the way Mr. Bartel will present to the council. So there will be I just want to highlight that there will be a significant chunk of the discussion that I think may be critical to evaluating some of these options that will not be available before the deadline for the report.
I understand. And we may be also relying a lot on the grand jury report, and some of their tables, and I understand that we may have questions that will have to be deferred till when Mr. Bartels is available. I do understand that, so thank you. Great. All right, so we're not going to take any sort of action on F2. That will be, in effect, continue to a study session. Okay, and we did approve the other consent calendar items, so we've now completed the consent calendar. All right, next we are at the public hearing, G1. Again, as I mentioned earlier and announced earlier, after a lot of back and forth between the city attorney, applicant, and appellant, it has been agreed that tonight's public hearing on the two items will be continued to a future date, likely October 23rd. And rather than reread that whole statement, but what we did want to do, so there will be no presentation by either the appellant or the applicant, no staff report or staff presentation tonight. However, we do want to respect the fact that there may be people here tonight who came to speak on this item from the public, and we want to at least allow them to have a chance and come up and speak to us. So we do have a couple, I see a couple speakers, Jen Willison being our first speaker, followed by Courtney Paul. Hi, Jen.
Good evening again. I'm just here about safety. Please do not put the loading zone on Menlo Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Courtney, there she is, followed by Adina Levin.
Hello again as well. I'll keep it short, just echo what Jen said. Want to think about safety, want to think about making areas in town that are walkable, bikeable, and where people don't feel threatened by incoming trucks and loading traffic. So again, don't put the loading zone on Menlo Avenue. Thanks.
Thank you, Courtney. Adina Levin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Adina Levin. I'm on the Complete Streets Commission, and I'm here to report a little bit about the Complete Streets discussion and why we came to the recommendation that we did at the time, and therefore why I will be looking with interest but also significant concern about the potential for having a loading zone on Menlo. So I live near downtown. I traverse Menlo back and forth, maybe not quite every day, but multiple times per week, going to Draeger's, going to Trader Joe's, and being a customer of our local downtown businesses, which is one of the great things that you can get when you live near downtown. And I am either walking with shopping bags or bicycling with a basket on my bicycle. And when you go there, and I would really encourage you to go to that area at a variety of different times and really see who is out. In looking at this issue, I went out with someone who was interested and concerned at a time, it was in the early evening, and there were people of many different ages. There were parents with little children in strollers and little bitty scooters. It was adorable. There were older people who were walking with baskets. There were people bicycling with baskets, and it was really clear that they were doing their shopping and errands. Just a large number of people who were using that street, walking and bicycling, including who are patronizing the local businesses. And needing to work around trucks would really put people into harm's way. So as the Complete Streets, we didn't want to come up with a specific solution. We thought that there were technical things to consider. So we recommended that staff work with the applicant and with Draeger's to come up with a solution. However, with a solution that would not entail putting people walking and bicycling on Menlo within harm's way of large trucks and needing to get out of the way of large trucks. And so I would, I also read the memo that the Draeger's consultant had crafted, and that memo had the word safety nowhere. In the Complete Streets description, safety was the main thing that we were considering, and delivery logistics was all over the memo. Safety was not. So I would really encourage your final decisions to include safety, and the Complete Streets Commission will surely do so. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Adina. And I think certainly one of the key things we certainly as I understood what the city attorney had drafted is that I think we wanted to make sure that the Complete Streets Commission had a chance to review where the two parties were looking at, and wanted to give the Complete Streets Commission a chance to weigh in, and certainly because we did hear that concern expressed, and I'm hoping all of you will be open-minded and will work with both the applicant and the appellant and see if there's something creative that all the parties can come up with, and then we look forward to the result of that. And just trying to make sure, Judy, there's no other cards. Okay.
Should I move to continue the public hearing? Right.
Nope. Yes, we have one. Okay.
Bill, when we close this, we're just moving to continue public hearing, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have a new
one?
public hearing.
A new one.
Presumably on October 23rd.
So we'll just close this?
Yeah.
Okay, when we're done. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Draeger, Anthony Draeger.
Thank you. I'm Tony Draeger, Menlo Park resident, and one of the owners of Draeger's Supermarkets. And I thank you, Mayor Otake, and Council Members Klein, Keith, and Mueller for allowing me this short time. Draeger's is amenable to the applicant's requested continuance. We want to thank staff for their continued hard work and expertise, for their commitment to retaining a loading zone to accommodate community-serving retail deliveries after 10 a.m. when public plaza loading hours end. We fully support the construction of 840 Menlo, provided such a loading zone is retained. This is essential not only for Draeger's, but for other community-serving retail businesses, including Pharmaca, that rely on the existing loading zone this project would displace. We look forward to continue to work with the city and remain open to positive, direct negotiations with the applicant if they choose to engage with us. On behalf of the Draeger family and our employees, we thank you for your service, and we look forward to returning to you before you in October.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Draeger. Mr. Carcione, Jr.
Thank you very much. Actually, I stood in front of this of council, a bunch of different people 16 years ago. And then I was acting as attorney for the Troyos, and said much of the same that I'm going to say tonight. There's no reason on God's earth why they should have trucks there. Every Safeway, anybody, big stores, little stores, whatever, chains always have warehouses. Draeger, wasn't this gentleman, Mr. Draeger, but Richard Draeger stood in front of the board 16 years ago and said, we're building a warehouse in South San Francisco. We won't have to have trucks deliver except Draeger trucks from now on. That's what's going to happen. It'll be built in 2 years. Actually, he said it's going to be a lot less than that in just a few months, and there will not be any trucks going there of any size at all. There will only be Draeger bobtails. They did build that warehouse in South San Francisco. They do have trucks that come out of South San Francisco, and they do come to Draeger's, but still, you'll get a Coca-Cola truck or a beer truck that's 40 or 50 feet long delivering 6 cases of beer. There's no reason why that beer shouldn't be delivered over to their warehouse in South San Francisco and bring it to them on the back of their bobtails. They come out of there every day. They have to take the produce out of South City. That's why they're there. They come every day. They bring all sorts of other items. There's no reason on God's earth why they should have to use the city of Menlo Park's street. Everybody else has loading docks. Your Safeway store has it. Every store everywhere has loading docks, not Traeger's. They use the street of the city of Menlo Park for free, and that's what they've gotten away with. They want to do that, but they should be doing what they're doing. They built their warehouse. No trucks should be on those streets except a few bobtails, 2 or 3 smaller trucks a day that come out of their warehouse in San Francisco, and that's it, South San Francisco. That's what they promised 16 years ago. They built their warehouse. They have 900 trucks a month that go into Draeger's in Menlo Park. Preposterous. They told us there would be none except their Draeger bobtails. That's what Richard said in front of and I sent a letter to you where I attached a copy of the almanac that quoted Mr. Draeger back then, 16 years ago. Thank you.
All right, there is Mr. Poe. I believe you submitted a card. What I'm hoping, come on up. I mean, you do have the right. I'd really prefer us not to get into the substantive because I think because we are continuing it, so.
I'm going to be, thank you very much. And I agree with you completely. Your point is well taken, and that's the only reason I'm standing here is to say that we only came here as a, let's say, a defensive matter. We expected that the matter was continued and that nothing would be said, and we had no intention of engaging in any controversy or taking the council's time whatsoever. But Mr. Draeger elected to stand up and speak, and I merely wanted to say, and we had a couple of public comments, and I merely wanted to say that we're quite happy to postpone in the manner that we pledged that we would. I won't continue the comments. I just wanted to mention to the 3 public speakers prior to Mr. Draeger, who are not directly involved in the matter, that the Menlo Avenue loading zone has been completely redesigned, and so we'd like them, if they would care to contact us, we would be happy to show that to them to see if it meets their satisfaction. But other than that, thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Pope. Okay, so with that, do we take a motion?
There's no need for a motion because we're going to reschedule a public hearing on October 23rd, assuming we're able to hold the Complete Streets Commission meeting. But I just want to reiterate that the concept is that staff is going to review the materials that were submitted, the proposal, look at some of the concerns and issues that were raised by the Complete Streets Commission, looking at safety issues in particular focus, and then the intent is to bring that proposal, their comments, analysis, et cetera, to the Complete Streets Commission at their October 10th meeting, so that staff has the time to do that, and there's time then before it comes to the City Council on the 23rd.
All right. Thank you very much. Yes, Councilmember Keith.
Thanks. Bill, just to clarify then, I understand what you just said, and I've talked to several people in this room about this project, from our commissioners to the applicants. And can you just tell me, Mr. Poe just spoke about an engineering drafting design. Is that going to be something that will be looked at by staff?
Yes, it's going to be looked at first by staff and then brought to the Complete Streets Commission so that you're getting their recommendation and input on that specific design. And, again, it's a conceptual design. It was done by BKF Engineers, so it's done by an engineering firm that does traffic work. But staff needs to review it and look at some of the specific concerns about turning radiuses bike lanes and widths of lanes, et cetera, to give their recommendation and comments to the Complete Streets Commission, so then it's in a position to make a recommendation or analyze it and give you a recommendation.
Good, I just wanted to make sure because I would like their feedback. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll move on now to item G2, which is, and thank you all for coming this evening. G2, introduce ordinance number 1049, amending Title 12, Building and Construction, ordinance number 1050, amending Title 16, Zoning, and ordinance number 1051, adding Chapter 12.24 to the Municipal Code related to the permit process for electric vehicle charging stations. We will have a staff presentation by Deanna Chow. I see her there. And then we will open the public hearing for public comment after the presentation. So, Deanna, I see Ron LaFrance. Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Otake, members of the City Council. I'm Deanna Chow, the Assistant Community Development Director for Planning, and here with me are Ron LaFrance, the Assistant Community Development Director for Building and the Building Official, and Ori Paz, our Assistant Planner here in the Planning Department. And together we are presenting the amendments to the EV charging requirements. So we have prepared a brief presentation which will include an overview of just the background of how we got here today, our current EV charging space requirements, the proposed EV charging space requirements, and then City Council's actions and next steps. So just to highlight a few of our milestones in the past couple of years, in 2016 in December, the City Council adopted the General Plan Connect Menlo and M2 area zoning update, and as part of that, adopted a robust set of green building regulations, which included EV charging regulations. Because those regulations for EV chargers exceeded what's existing in Cal Green, which is part of our building standards code, we had to adopt a local amendment which was brought forward to the City Council in February of 2017. And at that time, the City Council had expressed interest in potentially expanding those requirements to citywide and potentially looking at how to refine them or to increase the requirements. And so we brought forward a work plan to the City Council in May of 2017, at which time we adopted a three-prong approach and appointed council members Carlton and Klein to help guide staff in this effort. As part of that work plan, we conducted 2 small stakeholder meetings in the fall of 2017, followed by a broader outreach community meeting, which was attended by community members, property owners, environmentalists, and then we conducted 2 Planning Commission public hearings, one earlier this year and then one later this summer, following some guidance by the Planning Commission to further explore some additional ideas. And here we are this evening to present the proposed changes to the City Council, which were unanimously supported by the Planning Commission at their June meeting. So throughout this process, there were some considerations that staff factored in. So we wanted to look at how to expand the regulations citywide, and also what could we do to increase or refine those requirements. We understood that there would be differences between new construction and additions and alterations, and factor in potential cost implications. We knew that one size didn't fit all, so there would be differences between residential and non-residential regulations. We also heard that clarity and implementation was important. I mean, that's consistency for not only staff to implement, for our members of the public to understand what is meant by our regulations, and consistency in terminology. So what we may use in our zoning ordinance, we wanted to have similarities to what was terminology that was used in the building standards code. And then throughout this process, we also heard that there may be some difficulties in meeting our requirements. So if there were some cost implications that we need to consider, how do we factor in and explore, if there's a hardship, allow some flexibility in creating a hardship exemption. And then more recently, today, I know the City Council received a number of pieces of correspondence that mentioned load management. And so while we didn't include a load management provision in the ordinance as presented, we have prepared some language if the City Council would like to explore that, and that would allow the power to be shared amongst EV chargers, and so it wouldn't be charging at a full capacity, but to adjust and allow for sharing of the power without increasing the capacity. So what exists today? What are our current requirements? So as I mentioned, we have Cal Green, which is applicable citywide. These requirements are applicable to new construction only. So on the left, you'll see a table that pertains to non-residential development, and the number of EV charging spaces is based upon the number of parking stalls. And so in Cal Green, EV charging is requiring conduit, requires the conduit, requires a space in the electric panel, but does not require an actual charger to be installed. So as you see, the more parking spaces required, the higher number of EV charging spaces. On the right side is the residential component for new construction. So in single family and duplex, we already have there's an existing requirement to install the conduit and have the space in the panel. And then for multifamily, the applicability is to 17 or more units, and then it's a percentage of the number of parking spaces. So aside from Cal Green, and our zoning ordinance includes several zoning districts that have zoning-specific requirements. So as I mentioned earlier, we had our bayfront area as part of Connect Menlo. So at the bottom, we have the new O, LS, and RMU zoning districts, which were recently adopted. At that same time, we also adopted modifications to the C2B zoning district, which requires a percentage of EV spaces and then a minimum of 2 to be installed. And then separately, in 2012, we adopted the Elkman Around Downtown Specific Plan, which included EV requirements. And then as part of our housing element, when we crafted the new R4S zoning district, which is a multifamily zoning district, we also included EV regulations as well. I would say that O, LS, and RMU are the starting point for where our proposed regulations are today. So our proposed regulations are separated into non-residential, and then I'll go into residential. And you can see here we also separated between new construction and additions and alterations, recognizing that it's easier and more cost-effective potentially to install it at new construction. So with new construction, the requirement would be for conduit and wiring to be installed in 15% of the total required parking spaces versus what is proposed today at 5% in the O and LS district. We would then look to have 10% of EV, SE, or electric vehicle supply equipment installation, which would be in those 15% parking stalls versus 2 today. For additions and alterations, we would have a phased approach, and this is something that we heard from the community that, maybe there's too much too soon, and so let's look at a phased approach. And we also looked at a different requirement for larger buildings. So the larger buildings may have the ability to take on more responsibility, and so at between 10,000 and 25,000 square feet, so if you're doing an additional alteration of that size, the first year would be 1% of the required parking for the affected area, and then 25,000 square feet and above, we would increase that requirement to 2% through 10% in year 3. For residential development, we heard throughout the process that this is really where people will probably be doing their charging. People are going to be parking at night, and so we really need to have a more robust requirement for new residential. And so the threshold is 3 or more units. Single family and duplexes would be still under Cal Green. So 3 or more units would be applicable to the new requirements, and we would ask that conduit and wiring and space in the panel be for each unit, and then of that, 15% of EVSE to be installed. Currently, the requirement is based on 10,000 square feet, but when we talk residential units is probably the more applicable unit. And then for additions and alterations, we continue to say it's voluntary, so there's no change from the existing requirement today, and that was really based on feedback that we received that it's hard for existing tenants, perhaps small mom and pops, and we didn't want to discourage tenant improvements to smaller residential units. So, as I mentioned earlier, we wanted to have this opportunity to do clarifications in the implementation. And so a few of the highlights. So EV parking spaces would be included as part of the overall parking count. So it's not in addition to, so there's not more parking being created, but it's recognized as being inclusive of. The EV installation, the EVSE installation can be located anywhere on the site, wherever the applicant chooses, so long as it meets other building codes. For example, if it requires to have an accessible pathway, that still needs to be met, but it could be located anywhere on the site. We are proposing that the chargers be universal and be standard to all EVs, so that anyone can plug in and not need to worry if I have a certain type of car. But if there are proprietary chargers, we have added a provision where they can be installed so long as there's extra parking. So for each proprietary charger, there would be one extra parking space. Or we've also added the provision that they can go through an administrative permit through the community development director to install a proprietary charger. We have clarified that for the proposed requirements, the calculation for additions and alterations would be based upon affected area. Under today's code, it would be, even if you were only affecting 10,000 square feet, the requirement would be on your total building size. So again, that was based upon feedback of let's make it proportional to what the work is being done. And then we also established a cap, or clarified that there is a cap. So we were not asking for every addition or alteration that you're doing, you would potentially convert every parking space into EV. We are looking at the cap being what is established for the wiring and the conduit. So, for example, if 15% of the requirement, 50% would be the cap. And if there's additions or alterations, it would not be able to exceed that 15% max. So before you this evening, staff has prepared 3 separate ordinances. Two of them are in Title 12, which is the Building Standards Code. We will be locating the EV regulations as part of the building code. And then the second one is a permit streamlining per consistency with AB 1236, and those are attachments E and G in your staff report. And then many of the clarifications that we mentioned will be housed in Title 16, which is the zoning ordinance, which is attachment F. If the council proposes to adopt the ordinance, that today would be the first reading, and then we would bring back the second reading and adoption on September 11th, and then the ordinance would become effective 30 days after. And this concludes staff's presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Unless there are any clarifying questions, I don't see any clarifying questions.
I have one, Peter.
Yes, Councilmember Keith.
Thanks. I just have, I'm curious, I actually have 2 electric vehicles, and I just want to ask about the 40 amp versus the 50 amp, because I'm not an expert on this at all, but my understanding is that you want to have 50 amp so that you can draw a little 40, but if you have 40 amp, you can't draw 40 because your car won't allow you. So maybe I'd like clarification on this so that I understand.
So currently CalGreen requires a 40 amp breaker, and we're staying consistent with what the state requires. I don't personally own an electric vehicle, and so I can't address whether or not what type of charge you're going to get, but the state clearly feels that 40 amps is going to, within a reasonable amount of time, going to give you a full charge.
Within a reasonable amount of time, what?
Within a reasonable amount of, I'm sorry, let me actually move up to this thing. Within a reasonable amount of time, we'll give you a full charge.
I mean, it will eventually, but I think I'll let public commenters speak on too, but I am concerned about this because it does take a long time sometimes to charge, especially if you don't have, the DC fast charge. So if it is that we need to have 50 amps so that you can draw 40, I'm going to have questions about that. And if I only have 40 amps somewhere and people can't draw, they're going to be drawing 30, so it's going to take longer. That seems to be a concern for me, because, like I said, sometimes it can take a while to charge.
Okay.
Okay, I think Vice Mayor Mueller.
I'm not sure if this characterizes as a question because I think I already know the answer, but I want to get it out there early in the discussion. Tesla's been sending emails. They really want to have a supercharging station in the Sharon Heights parking lot. I don't think this provides any flexibility to do that, and I'm wondering if it's possible to add into the ordinance. What my understanding is from the planning side is that it has to do with an analysis of how many parking spaces are required for the Sharon Heights parking lot. And even though whenever I go up there, it's never full. So I'm trying to figure out, is there any flexibility to be provided through this ordinance, or could it be provided for a Tesla supercharging station?
So thank you. So as proposed, there would be, as proposed, it would need to be a universal charger. So a Tesla supercharger, if there's extra parking spaces, we could do a 1-for-1, or through an administrative permit, which is through review by the community development director, could approve a modification, and they would be able to justify why, there's parking at the site, and so having a car-specific charger would not impede the overall parking of the site. Do an analysis of, are there maybe if there are tenants that are specific to Tesla as part of that justification. So it's something on a case by case that we would look at. So there is already a built-in provision in the proposed ordinance taking that into consideration.
Excellent. So then, what would be the process under the ordinance if they wanted to come forward and have that analysis done?
So the applicant would supply that information and seek the request. So there would be a filing fee, an application, plans, justification, and then it would be reviewed by the community development director. We would notice the neighbor saying, hey, this is an application that's on file. Please let us know if you have any considerations. And then we would send out a separate notice indicating that it's the intent of the director to adopt a
administrative
change.
review only with appeal to planning commission?
That's correct, as proposed.
All right, thank you.
Okay. I will now open the public hearing portion, and there are several speakers. The first is Nesreen Kawar, followed by Amanda Myers. Nesreen, good evening.
Hi. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Nesreen Kawar, and I'm a senior project manager at Midpen Housing Corporation. Midpen Housing is one of the leading nonprofit affordable housing developers in Northern California, having developed over 7,500 affordable homes. We're based on the peninsula, and we're very active in Menlo Park, as you know, specifically with developments on Willow Road. We recently completed Sequoia Belhaven, a 90-unit senior housing community that achieved LEED Platinum rating. Sequoia was our second LEED Platinum building, and we are completing our first net zero energy ready building in Sunnyvale next month. We're also a 3-time winner of the Sustainable San Mateo Award, so as you can see, we are very committed to green. We're currently working on creating additional affordable housing on the 1300 block of Willow, where we're redeveloping our Gateway Family site to provide 140 new units, 58 of which will be a net addition to the city. We were here last year in front of you where you approved housing funds commitment for that project, so thank you. I also want to thank staff for bringing this proposed ordinance issue to our attention. We do support the city's work to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and promote sustainable buildings. But I'm here today to request an exception to the new policy for affordable housing. Our Gateway project has momentum, and we have a very rare opportunity to bring more affordable housing to Menlo Park. We submitted our drawings for design compliance review with the city about a month ago. As I mentioned last year, we did receive a funding commitment from City Council, and we've recently submitted a funding application with the county. which, if awarded, will be the last local dollars needed to make the project go. The current EV requirements for our Gateway site under the affordable housing overlay that our site qualifies for would mean 5 EV stations to be wired and 3 built-out stations, which is costing the project roughly $50,000. Under this new proposed ordinance, we would be required to provide 140 wired stations and 21 fully built-out stations at a cost of $1 million to the project. As you can imagine, this is a significant hurdle for any affordable housing project. We encourage you to please reduce EV stations requirements for affordable housing. We did some analysis and determined that we could accommodate up to 14 wired stations under our current Gateway design. This would cost the project an additional roughly $250,000 and would mean 10% of the apartments would be served by EV stations. A reduction is also very appropriate for such developments because while fuel costs may be low, cost to acquire an electric vehicle is prohibitive to existing residents who are mostly very low and extremely low income households. It's important to note that the EV stations we installed at Sequoia Belhaven under the affordable housing overlay it qualified for are not being used by our residents. The policy as proposed creates an additional hurdle for affordable housing and slows the delivery of much-needed new affordable homes. Wired EV stations equal to 10% of apartment homes would be sufficient to serve affordable housing residents and enable planned affordable housing to continue forward as planned. We thank you.
Thank you. Amanda Myers, followed by Francesca Wall. Good evening.
Good evening. Amanda Myers from ChargePoint. We're the world's leading electric vehicle charging company. Tonight we're here to support this ordinance. Generally, we are very supportive of EV-ready measures such as this. It's a very cost-effective way to bring EV infrastructure to the built environment, one of the most challenging places to get infrastructure for the growing EV demand, especially here in Menlo Park. So in general, we support the increase in EV readiness in this proposed ordinance. As additionally, it affects more areas of the city, which we think is important compared to the previous iteration. And we also think it's really important that it applies to expansions and alterations of existing buildings, or existing buildings undergoing expansions and alterations, given that is most of the buildings here in Menlo Park. I'm a little bit hesitant about the voluntary installation of EVSE above the cap would require the install of a new parking space, which was presented in the staff report. I think what that does is it creates more of a ceiling than a floor for this, and I think it would basically prevent any developers or building owners to go above this EV-ready ordinance. We also support the lowered exemption based on the number of units for multifamily residences, again, to capture more of those residents that might want to drive an EV. Additionally, we support the 1 EV space with conduit and wiring for each unit in multifamily. There is some difficulty when you don't have that level of EV readiness to be able for EV drivers to be able to match, have their deeded or dedicated spot with an actual ability to put in a charger. So I think it really gives a lot of flexibility to EV drivers in multifamily residences, which is one of the more underserved parts of the housing market in terms of access to EV charging. And additionally, in terms of the streamlined permitting, we recommend reviewing the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, or GOBIZ, their plug-in charging station development guidebook, which will be released hopefully next month. I think that could be really helpful, although it sounds like Menlo Park has done a great job streamlining the process thus far. I did want to make a really quick comment on load management. It looks like you might have a provision there, but I want to recommend that language is carefully crafted and includes a performance standard and an ability for enforceability. And I'm happy to follow up with staff on some recommendations on that. And I also want to comment on the 50 amp, but I can
May I ask the speaker a question?
Yeah, if you want to summarize quick.
Sure.
Go ahead.
We would support the 50 amp increase. I think you're correct in what you're saying. It would give the flexibility for it would allow more vehicles to charge at a faster rate. We've provided, and we referenced the CalGreen, which currently only requires 40 amp. We've recommended the state to also increase that to 50 amp to capture more of the electric vehicle models that have larger batteries and are charging faster going forward.
Okay. Thank you for that information.
Francesca Wall, followed by Diane Bailey. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Francesca Wall, and I'm here on behalf of Tesla. So as you all saw, we submitted comments on the proposed building and zoning code, which were attached to the staff report. And I would say in general, we are very supportive of Menlo Park's efforts to increase EV readiness for new construction, including additions and alterations. And we really appreciate all of staff's hard work and in-depth analysis on this issue. While we appreciate the update that was discussed around the administrative process, unfortunately, we still believe that the zoning code language as currently written continues to have the unintended consequence of limiting the ability to deploy Tesla charging infrastructure in Menlo Park going forward, and is also somewhat counterintuitive to AB 1236, the streamlined permitting bill. In our written comments from July, we highlighted the fact that today for level 3 DC fast charging, there is no standard that can be used by all electric vehicles. There are 3 main fast charging standards, which include Tesla, CHAdeMO, and CCS. So therefore, no matter what technology is used for fast charging, it would serve a certain subset of electric vehicles. That's different for level 2, and we also discussed that further in a letter. One specific area I just wanted to highlight, which I believe may have just been written incorrectly, but should hopefully be something that you correct prior to full approval, is that in Chapter 16.72, it currently says that all required EVSE shall be compatible with current major vehicle manufacturers' charging ports without the use of an adapter. So by definition, this language doesn't work because Tesla vehicles can't use other chargers without an adapter. And so you are basically excluding any chargers from being able to be deployed since we need adapters for both level 2 and level 3 fast charging. Finally, I just conclude with the fact that Menlo Park has one of the highest shares of electric vehicle sales of any city in California, which really underscores the importance of building out infrastructure here. And Tesla drivers represent approximately 43% of the zero-emission vehicles registered in Menlo Park from 2013 to 2018. So we are a large portion of the vehicle population. We really want to help Menlo Park address the infrastructure need in your community, hence the discussion of the Tesla Supercharger site that was brought up earlier. Our Tesla Supercharger customers who use those sites are then patrons of the community. They visit those local stores, and they also, by having access to that infrastructure, are not using the existing infrastructure network, and so we are helping open up that network, and so we really want to be a partner in the community and help you deploy infrastructure as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Bailey, followed by Andrew Boone.
Good evening, council members. My name is Diane Bailey. I'm director of Menlo Spark, local community environmental group striving towards a zero carbon future. And I'm here in strong support today of this EV charging infrastructure. I think that staff has done a tremendous job pulling this together and with very strong support from the Environmental Quality Commission. I want to note that Menlo Park has really shown amazing leadership on climate progress, and we really can't let up now. We're feeling the impacts of climate change now, and we need to move swiftly on a transition from fossil fuels. And supporting electric cars is a top priority to get us off of fossil fuels. We need a lot more public charging to do that, and especially where people live in multifamily and where they work, to help people make the right choices with their vehicles. Regarding the comments from Mid-Penn Housing, we share the concern about affordable housing. We definitely would not want to hold up affordable housing projects with requirements. However, low-income families can save a lot of money by transitioning their gas guzzler vehicles to electric vehicles. There's a lot of data now that shows that just in annual fuel bills, these families could save $1,000 per vehicle transitioning their vehicles. And hundreds of dollars saved in avoided maintenance. So I think that's really important to consider. And I emailed earlier to show that there are at least 5 different funding sources to help affordable housing developers get these infrastructure costs covered. And Menlo Spark is really committed to working with developers to make sure that these funds get utilized and the applications get sent and their costs are covered. This is a priority for us. We'll work with city staff, we'll work with developers. Charging infrastructure will also support a resilient, renewable grid of the future where car batteries can time their charging to coincide with surplus grid power. And this speaks to the comments emailed earlier today by Craig Lewis. And we can also use car batteries in the future as additional surplus power energy storage as needed. And so that's a really important note about our community resilience. This ordinance solves all of these issues in the most cost-effective manner because these requirements are put on new buildings before they are built, and so it's much cheaper, and we would like to work with Mid-Penn to investigate that $1 million cost that was quoted. That seems extraordinarily high to me. I want to note that the City of Palo Alto has adopted similar requirements about 4 years ago. And they shared some comments with Menlo Park staff about how this has been going earlier this year and characterized their ordinance as extremely successful. They have not had pushback from developers or complaints. We hear from residents over and over again at public events that a lot of folks would like to have an EV, but they can't because they can't charge it where they live or where they work. And this policy really solves that. I want to note really quickly that I support the speaker that preceded me, Francesca. I think she made some excellent points. We also support 50 amp charging and note that Portola Valley has moved in that direction recently. The future of mobility is electric, and we hope that you'll usher it in today with this policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Andrew Boone, followed by Janelle London.
Good evening, Mayor Otake and council members. My name is Andrew Boone. I live on Woodland Avenue in East Palo Alto. I definitely agree with Diane Bailey and other speakers who've commented that transitioning to using large numbers of electric cars instead of gasoline-powered cars is a major step forward for environmental protection because the greenhouse gases that are produced is something like half in California, where we do have a lot of electricity come from renewable sources like hydro and wind and solar. So it's not like it eliminates the environmental damage associated with cars by any means, but half is a big number for one type of major environmental damage. So I'm glad to see electric car charging requirements going into new buildings, but I would like you to think about what are our requirements for bicycle parking spaces in new buildings. There are requirements, as there are in Palo Alto, but my point is that if you're mandating something expensive like electric vehicle charging infrastructure into buildings, you should definitely be mandating something very, very cheap like bicycle parking racks at a high enough number, appropriate number. And that's my question. I looked up in the municipal code, and it's clear that for office buildings, that number is 1 bicycle parking space per 5,000 square feet. Now, 5,000 square feet, if you divide by 150 per employee, you get roughly, that's 1 per 30 employees. If it were 200 square feet per employee, that would be 1 per 25 employees. So you're only talking about 3 to 4% of workers you are expecting to park a bicycle in office space in Menlo Park. That's way below the rate that Menlo Park residents are already using bicycles to go to work, which is something like 10% or a little under 10%. I checked Palo Alto's municipal code today to compare what are their bicycle parking requirements. Now they do it differently. They have a longer section for bicycle parking requirements, more detailed, and different requirements for different land uses. There's a bunch of different numbers, but they're all higher than Menlo Park's 1 per 5,000 square feet. It's something like one per 1,500 square feet or one per 3,000 square feet, depending on the use. If it's office, retail, medical, different kinds of offices. But overall, Palo Alto has something like twice the requirement. So that makes me think maybe we in Menlo Park should review ours. Make sure that we are mandating, go for the cheapest thing. The most effective thing is to make sure all the buildings have adequate, high-quality bike parking. That should be priority above creating electric vehicle charging infrastructure, because it's so much cheaper, it's so much more beneficial to the environment. It's a lower-hanging fruit. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Janelle, good evening, followed by Adina Levin.
Hi, Janelle London. Great to be here. Thank you all for your attention to this super important issue. I work with a nonprofit called Cultura that's working to accelerate the transition from gasoline cars to clean cars. As other speakers have pointed out, this is a critical issue in our time as far as the environment and also the air that we breathe. Why should we have to wait any longer to breathe clean air and reduce our asthma rates and reduce the damage that we're doing to our climate? I wanted to, instead of speaking about my own comments, which I did submit in an email to you guys, I wanted to briefly read Sven Thiessen's comments. I consider myself a little bit of an EV expert, but he's like a real, true EV expert. Plus, he's from Palo Alto, which is 4 years ahead of us on this. Okay, they put something in place in 2014, similar to what you guys are looking at now, and I think they have a great report to share. So I'll just quickly read this into you. It says, as a number of you council members know, EVs are cheaper, more convenient, and have a much smaller energy and carbon footprint than internal combustion vehicles. However, one of the biggest concerns is the lack of charging infrastructure. And I'm paraphrasing. This ordinance solves this in the most cost-effective manner by requiring certain levels of charging infrastructure at the point of new construction. As part of the ordinance development, the city of Palo Alto, which has had similar requirements in place for the last 4 years, submitted comments in support of the Menlo Park ordinance. Specifically, Peter Pernijad, Palo Alto's Director of Development Services, stated, I estimate that this ordinance has increased construction costs by less than 0.5%, and I know from experience that it is considerably more expensive, 10 to 100 times more, to add the charging infrastructure post-construction than pre-construction. To date, my department has had no pushback from developers, limited pushback on the commercial side, primarily due to new California ADA requirements. And his email closes with, in summary, it's my opinion that Palo Alto's 2014 EV charging requirements have been a major success. Feel free to contact my office, blah, blah, blah. And so I just wanted to emphasize that we have this resource in Palo Alto to turn to them and see what they've done in these areas that still seem to be questionable. I also wanted to encourage you guys, it's kind of challenging because you're needing to look far into the future, right? We're already at an 18% EV adoption rate. So 18% is kind of the now number for our EV charging requirements, but that rate is growing. In the past year alone, the report from the International Council on Clean Transportation reported that it grew 8%. So this is happening by leaps and bounds, and we have a neighborhood effect here where if you see one of your friends or neighbors driving an EV, you kind of get to know how that works, and suddenly you want to drive one. It's also critical to look ahead to low-income folks. So the more EVs that we can encourage in Menlo Park today, whether they be new or not, that's the more used EVs and the more affordable EVs we're going to have in the future. I would hate to leave our folks in low-income housing stuck driving expensive gas cars when we have the chance to give them an opportunity to have clean electric vehicles that will be cheaper. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle. Adina Levin, followed by Andrew Marcos. Hi, Adina.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Adina Levin speaking for myself as an individual with just a couple of points to make following up to some of the good comments to date. And I want to talk about two different topics here. And one is the proposal that in order to have custom charging, as is the product feature of a Tesla, that a development would need to have extra parking spaces to accommodate those or go through a lengthy custom process in order to justify it. And so let's say, imagine that we have in Menlo Park, we've got a lot of finance businesses. Like we have a venture capitalist or a finance firm, and there's 10 people with Teslas. There's a lot of Teslas here in Menlo Park. You see them down the street. So does this mean that in order to accommodate that, we're going to need to have that many extra parking spaces in that building? So we definitely want to see much more adoption of electric vehicles. They are cleaner, but they're still, consuming power off the power grid, and there's a natural gas plant somewhere that's generating some of that power. We also have health goals where if somebody has the ability to bike to work, we want to encourage that. And a Tesla, even though it's cleaner, it's also generating traffic congestion on the roads, and we have an interest there. So by requiring more parking, that would be making driving more attractive than taking Caltrain or bicycling to work. And therefore, I think that this is well-intentioned but misguided, and I would suggest not having this onerous requirement for having an extra parking space for each anticipated Tesla in the building, not here, not in Menlo Park. That doesn't really make much sense. And then lastly, to build on everything that Diane Bailey said regarding the below market rate housing and the electric vehicle opportunities there and funding sources there, I would like to second everything that she said and then just add one little piece of information, which is that Transform, which is a regional nonprofit working on sustainable transportation and doing a lot of work in low-income communities, is working on some programs to provide shared electric vehicles services with access to low-income communities that might be a good fit for our BMR housing. And that is yet another reason to have the electric charging for them in a way that will save cost for a resident of below-market rate housing and enable that to be clean, low cost, and a good fit for the residents. So thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Morcos. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Appreciate you hearing me out. I'm Andrew Morcos. I'm the Development Director for Greystar in Menlo Park. We built Alon Menlo Park on Haven Avenue and are pursuing other projects in the RMU district. I'm here to urge council to vote no on this just because I commend the city and staff for continuing to pursue ambitious and environmentally conscious policies in Menlo Park. However, I think there are some things that need to be incorporated into the regulation and the policy to make it more holistic and include the opinions of non-biased actors. I sent an email to staff and to council members earlier today, which summarized some of the points that I think are important to take into account, and I'd be more than happy to put council members or staff in touch with various experts that I've found and hopefully help the council find non-biased experts to supply information to accurately portray the issue and the solution to the issue. I'd say that Greystar is fully on board with green building and would be more than happy to provide the flexibility for future market conditions. However, forcing stringent conditions today for a market that is not requiring them is onerous and can impede development. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other comments, or I should say any other questions or public comment? All right, I think we'll come back up here and...
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, and by acclamation, public hearing is now closed. Thank you. Let's come back up here for questions. Councilmember Klein.
Yeah, thank you. I was working on this with Councilmember Carlton, and we did actually hit it a couple times. The first, I guess the basis for a lot of what we were looking at was Palo Alto's ordinance. I mean, that was obviously the easiest point to see a test case and how that was going, and that was very ambitious, very early. And so we were trying to consider how to do this successfully, but also, so that it gets implemented, quite frankly, so that it can move forward, and then if we need to increase or if there's opportunities, if it started off maybe too low, we can modify it, but we were concerned about impacts, and the unnecessary kind of, or let's just say the unintentioned impacts. And some of those have been brought up, so I just want to ask a little bit of that because I feel like it's been forever since we were in that subcommittee meeting. And so clarifying some of these. One is obviously I'm not sure if there are other examples of exceptions with affordable housing in Palo Alto or other cities that may have adopted something like this. Is there anything that you are aware of? And if not, is there something that you have considered? We did consider the impacts on homeowners, people that couldn't, really afford these things, but perhaps there's other ways to view it.
So we did hear the concerns about potential cost implications, and so we did add an exception in our proposed ordinance. So similar to what is an existing exception in CalGreen for commercial development, we used the same language and transferred it into the residential, recognizing that for cost implications, there could be considerations that the building official could make.
Okay. And that's just based on each case study?
Right. Each case study looking at what potential increase in infrastructure may be needed and what that cost implication would be.
Okay. And then the other item that came up was the proprietary, the parking spaces needed, flexibility. There is a market leader in the area, right? Clearly, and so there is impact. I can see that. So I'm just curious if there, again, because it's been a few months, when we considered that, I remember the clear discussion about the spaces and the reason for that, but I'm wondering if there are existing kind of examples of where we may want to open that up or make that a little more flexible so that we don't discourage the use of any type of EV.
So I don't think we're trying to discourage. I think we're hoping.
We're not trying to. That's why it's the unintentional.
Right, it's the unintentional consequence. I think we're trying to look at, what would be the most inclusive, especially since we're looking at not creating more parking spaces. We're looking at saying EV really is a subset of parking out there, and so it's really part of our parking requirement. And so trying to get the most people out there to actually use the EV parking spaces and not have this is going to be a Leaf and this is going to be, particular cars. And so making it universal across the board. We do recognize that we probably have a very high population of Tesla users here, whether they're workers or residents. And how do we accommodate for that? And so we're not necessarily saying that we need extra parking spaces. I think there was a speaker saying, well, you're adding 1 for 1, which is true, but you can also demonstrate that, hey, we don't need as much parking that we have on site. And so we may actually need a parking reduction, and we therefore have extra parking spaces that could accommodate proprietary charging spaces.
And their process would be that same administrative
right.
approach.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is there given, let's say we're as busy as we are right now, how long is that process usually for somebody to go through an administrative permit? And
it could
I
probably
know it depends on a lot of factors.
Right, it depends on a lot of factors. It depends on, the workload, and staffing resources. But I mean, it could be it could be generally in the 2-month time frame.
Okay. If we wanted to change this, increase the numbers, is it a matter of restudying, or is it just a matter of updating the formula and then bringing it back to council? Would we need to do a new community kind of wide study and evaluation again?
So if there was interest by the council to use a potential to say proprietary, so we could have a percentage of spaces being, EV ready, and then potentially, percentage of that be EV SE installed. And then even further than that, we could say of that percentage, say if it's 15%, a subset of that could be for proprietary, if that is something that the council wants to consider. So there could be a limit on, universal, and then of that, there could be a percentage that is appropriate for proprietary chargers.
Okay. That might be good to have. And then the performance standard item, I didn't, not an expert in the space. So the performance standards and the ability for the enforcement of such, it's probably something that you guys have dealt with in many other kind of installs and technology, but how would you enforce the performance of the various types of charging units? Or when specifically, I think what it was load management, and then I'll get to the 50-40 amp thing because Kirsten brought it up. I'll let Kirsten bring that up.
So we have had several load management systems installed in town. They're generally in installations where there's existing infrastructure, electrical infrastructure, that there's no capacity to really add to it without a significant cost. And we've looked at what has been submitted in terms of the system itself, and made sure that they're UL tested and safe. Beyond that, the performance is up to the manufacturer. We've not to date monitored that.
Okay. And if there was a problem with it, we could obviously update this and then also address it with the manufacturer or with the people who own the buildings and try to modify this so that we don't use certain technology if it's not working.
Yes, I could do some research to figure out what an acceptable performance level would be. The two systems that we have used or have been used, one was a company out of Berkeley, who I forget the name. I had a nice conversation with them, a lengthy conversation with them, and they said that they can charge, it was 2 to 4 cars on one 40-amp breaker in 8 hours is what they claimed, and I'm flying from memory, which is not good, and I apologize for that. But that's their claim, and I didn't ask for any testing results on that.
All right, maybe we can get help from a group, especially people that spoke here. But I mean, that's the questions I have. I think there's probably some word modifications and things that we could do to make this a little easier, but I'm still pretty supportive.
Thank you, Rich. Councilmember Keith.
Thank you. Thank you for the staff report, and thank you to our environmental quality commissioners, Janelle London. I know you worked hard on this, and I really appreciate it. I'm really glad to see this is here. I have 2 cars that I want to charge all over the place, and I think this is really important for people coming here to Menlo Park from other places, and for people here in Menlo Park. So one thing I would like to change, and I also wanted to address the affordable housing also. I did speak with Diane Bailey earlier today about the affordable housing issue, and thanks for sending that email in with the information about grants and other money available to help with this issue. And I know, one of the things that we did last year, working with Menlo Spark and the city of Menlo Park, was to install solar panels on homes in Bellhaven. And there were about 12 homes that had solar panels installed. And then this year, the idea is to actually put in charging stations so that people with those solar panels can now get electric vehicles. And we've all seen the little Fiats that are out there that, they had deals where you could lease them for $99. So I'm not saying that is happening right now, but it was. I remember seeing those ads. So I am interested, and I've talked to people at MidPenn about this too, that I'm interested in having this in our affordable housing units too. I think it's important that we have it there as well, so that people can reduce their costs for living here, and that it does help. It helps our air, as we've heard, and I won't reiterate that. It helps clean the air. The one change that I would like to see in here is that every reference to a 40-amp receptacle be changed to NEMA, N-E-M-A, 14-50 receptacle. It's my understanding, and maybe people from Tesla can come up and say this, or from that's what a Tesla and a Nissan EV come with. And I think it's important that we have the ability to I think that is the standard, and so I'd like to ask that be changed in here so that we can say that.
So we did change the language in the ordinance, and I'm looking for it really quickly, but I worded it very broadly. Install branch circuit wiring receptacle size to carry not less than a 40 amp, 240 volt load for electrical vehicle charging and a structural column for residential carports. And so it is left up to the developer and installer to pick the specific receptacle.
Thank you for that. I saw that in there, and so I understood that you changed that, but I don't think it's helpful enough. So what my request up here would be to just, wherever we see that, to just change it so that we say the NEMA 14 to 50 receptacles. And that way, it's the standard, it will make more sense, and everybody should be doing that.
Okay, easily done.
Thank you. And otherwise, I'm totally on board with this. I think it's great. Thanks so much for working so hard. To staff also for getting this to us.
Okay, thank you, Kirsten. Vice Mayor Mueller.
Just a technical question. We're confident that that what we're asking to be installed is going to be still applicable to the state of the art 5 years from now. Like, we've talked to those. I mean, what I don't want to do is be in a position where we push everybody to do this, and then it was knowable at the time we did this that we didn't, that the industry was changing and looking at a new technology. Are we, in other words, are we doing enough?
So part of this amendment is amending CalGreen, which is the state green building standards code. That will be up for amendment again, or for readoption, excuse me, in 2019, effective 2020, and then again in 2022, effective 2023. So every 3 years, we have the opportunity to look back at what this is, look at what the industry standards are, make adjustments if the state has not already done that.
All right. Tonight I'm prepared. The only thing I want to say is I do want to drop the addition of a fossil fuel parking space whenever an EV space is installed. I don't think it's necessary. So I totally support that. Tonight I am prepared to say let's not the pursuit of perfection be the stumbling block to progress. I think if our neighbors have already done this 4 years ago, let's just get it in. And if there's problems, we'll fix it. The one thing I do want to ask, the Planning Commission made the recommendation that if there was a showing that the cost was onerous, that there could be a procedure by which they followed in order to go ahead and reduce how many charging stations would be required. I looked at the comments in the staff report, and it said that was a problem because as it related to the control, the EV panel. And what I'm curious to know is so it says it requires the service panel or sub panel. It seems to me that this process that they were referring to actually addresses the issue when you get to a shovel-ready project for affordable housing, that if it really is going to be $1 million extra and they can show that, and it's going to kill the project otherwise, I would expect that this would be something only done in extreme circumstances. But is it possible to say you still have to put in the sub panel, but you don't necessarily have to do the rest of the rest of the installation in case, and by that way piecemealing the installation in case there were funds later that allowed them to complete the installation?
Yeah, so within CalGreen, the language that was added specifically from Chapter 5, it was duplicated in Chapter 4. There's two exceptions. One is when there's insufficient electrical supply, and the other one is directly related to local costs associated with local utility infrastructure design requirements, that will adversely impact the construction cost, I can amend that to include adverse construction costs due to the requirements for on-site.
I appreciate that. I think that actually addresses the issue that's been raised, but still allows the on-site installation to move forward if there's other funding that's available. I want to express my thanks to Councilmember Klein and Councilmember Carlton for their work on this and to staff. It's exciting to be moving forward on it.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Ray. I too also want to thank Councilmembers Klein and Carlton for their work on it and the additions that have been made. I have tonight, just in some of the discussions, I too am concerned about trying to figure out the proprietary versus the mix. I mean, one of the things I saw in Tesla's letter was that one thing that concerned me was getting all these letters, obviously from the developers saying, look, this is question of justification. But then I see in Tesla's letter the market share for electric vehicles in Menlo Park is up at 18%. So of new car sales. So that to me justifies that we should be, certainly be accommodating for that, and we're trying to do that with new construction. It makes a lot of sense. So I certainly feel comfortable with that. I do want to address the proprietary issue, and I think I heard that you've got some comfort there in terms of because I am by no means, in no way an expert, and I know you guys have spent a lot of time, so I'm going to rely on and follow your leadership on it, and I want to thank you for that. I am concerned, like Vice Mayor Mueller talked about, with this potential $1 million cost, and so I also echo and concur with to the extent that can be addressed. I'm fine with that, and Councilmember Keith on the load management, I appreciate that. So I really don't have anything else to add, but and I am supportive of this. But I am concerned just about how many correspondence and letters we got on the developer side, and not just, I'm not talking about the big developers, I'm talking about even like Mr. Cadavar, who's got one project, and I don't think that should, I particularly given that Palo Alto's already implemented an ordinance 4 years ago and they seem to be having some pretty good success, I don't want to stand in the way, and I think we should go forward with this. But now the question becomes communicating, right? And how do we make this doable and make sure that that the various developers who are about to submit new proposals, that they're not only informed and understand, so that they, of course, will move forward with this. So there's a little bit of kind of, I don't know if you want to say marketing or just, is there a guidance kit or some way that you can help now take this this ordinance and then make it into something that various developers can use and easily understand and implement, basically.
Thank you. So we'll look to create some handouts to make it more user-friendly to prepare. We've been, as we talk through with applicants, we've been mentioning that there are, proposed EV regulations that are being discussed, and so if they are adopted, we can certainly prepare handouts so that they can be used as an easy tool, whether they can access them online or be used for our staff to talk with applicants at the counter We can talk about how we might post things around, at the front counter, new EV regulations coming into effect in 30 days, ask us about them. So we can talk internally of, how best to get the word out. But I think with the representation here today, I think, there is, been outreach and there's been discussion amongst professionals, and hopefully we'll continue that dialogue as we, as Ron mentioned, there are potential changes every 3 years as part of the CalGreen, and we can continue that dialogue as we hear more, as it's being implemented, what's working and what's not working.
Great. And I'd like to encourage and provide as guidance that in that flyer, you talk about the high percentage, or at least, what I saw in all these letters is talking about the state percentage, 5% EV vehicles versus of new car sales. And I think you want to make it very clear that we recognize Menlo Park has a much higher adoption rate, and therefore this ordinance is really designed to make sure that we are keeping up with the actual market demand that's taking place in Menlo Park. I hope we'll inform the developers as they come in as to why we have this in there, and perhaps not gripe as much about it if we provide them some good data on that. Okay, great. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. It does include just changing every reference to the 40 amp to the NEMA 14-50. Thanks.
Okay. And the other
yes.
amendments that
And
were
the other
talked
amendments.
about. This will come back and we'll look at it.
Okay.
Another time. Okay.
So just for one clarification, so just on the change to the 40 amp, so that's not changing it to 50 amp, that's just specifically changing it to the reference to the NEMA 1450?
So, yeah, right. Rather than anywhere where it says a 40 amp receptacle, just change it to the NEMA 14-50 receptacle.
Okay, great. And then I know Councilmember Mueller, Mr. LaFrance read some modifications to the exemption requirement.
Yeah, do you want me to actually
Would you like to hear it in its entirety?
Yeah. Yes.
I apologize, it's a little codey, for lack of a better term. So I did draft a exemption specific to, but it doesn't sound like it is. And it reads, where there is evidence suitable to the local enforcing agency substantiating that additional site infrastructure design requirements directly related to the implementations of sections, whatever, has little likelihood of being accomplished because of existing structural conditions requiring removal or alteration of a load-bearing member that is an essential part of the structural frame, or because of existing physical or site constraints prohibiting modification or addition of elements, spaces, or features. Yeah, I know. It's not specific to cost. If you would like me to add language.
Well, I'm going to ask the city attorney to sit down with you.
Yeah, I think you or work with Lee, or we can work out the language, but I think they want to add in specifically relating to the cost.
Yes, understood.
Significant cost that adds and we'll come up with language.
You're right, yeah, and I think you understand. The purpose is I don't want a giant loophole someone can walk through. I want something really tight, really tight. The second thing, and then the second was, and I don't know if, I think we have a council agreement on it, that you would not have, you would not require a fossil fuel space for the addition of an EV charging space.
The voluntary.
So just
voluntary. So if an applicant comes forward and says, I want to add an EV space, they're not going to have to provide a new fossil fuel space.
So this is for proprietary or beyond the maximum that required, or?
Either. Either.
So we're eliminating the provision or the separation for the proprietary?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So that would eliminate the admin permit if you were to do a proprietary. So the EV requirement could be met by a universal or a proprietary charger. Is that what I'm understanding?
I'm fine with that, personally.
In the platform.
That was my understanding of Councilmember Keith's proposal, was to To eliminate that distinction.
To open it up so that it could be any.
And that we not require them to put in a new fossil fuel, but for either, just.
Right. So if we increase voluntary number of EV spaces, they don't have to add fossil fuel spaces on top of that, above the minimum.
So the requirement was that if you were not even at, so I guess there's, I should probably pull it, but.
I understand the secondary thing you're saying, well, what happens if they come forward and they want to do a proprietary? Do they have to do it? And my answer would be no. If they want to add a proprietary, we're still going to encourage that. The only reason why they're going to spend the money to add a proprietary if there's enough demand for the site that they actually need it. So from a policy perspective, I don't have a problem with either.
So just to be clear, so the requirement can be met, so if it's a 15% requirement and 10% need to be installed, the 10% that needs to be installed could be universal or proprietary. And so we're going to eliminate the language for needing an admin permit if you are adding a proprietary stall, or if you are adding above the maximum cap, you need to add a stall.
Right.
We're eliminating that requirement.
Correct, in both cases.
I'm not sure I understand now, actually. I think if you're going to add a universal, that's great, and I don't think you should have to add another parking stall for a diesel car. But now we're talking about if it's proprietary, that you wouldn't have to either. And I agree. I mean, I think they're more expensive to install, so probably somebody's not going to do it unless there's the actual need for it. But I'm wondering about encouraging the universal ones over proprietary as well.
I just want to encourage EV use.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, that's
really.
and not everybody can afford a Tesla, although I know this area has many Teslas. Not everybody will be buying a Tesla. There are other, makers of electric vehicles.
I think I'm fine with that. I'm fine with it.
So you need to give the direction.
Yeah,
Staff can't make that determination.
I am in agreement that we can go with both. Take the restriction off and say proprietary or universal, and you don't need to add a space because I just don't know how this thing's going to run. We just got to do it and see.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't have to be perfect, like you said.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be perfect. We'll figure it out. But I also think that there's a good chance with the proprietary, in the circumstances that someone's objecting to it, the proprietary may come forward and start paying for the installation.
Yeah, okay. Does that motion, is that not clear?
Yeah,
Clear.
and we're just confirming all the pieces, and then there was the language on the, we were talking about the, I thought there was something we were changing for the affordable housing, or for the exception or something there.
Yes, so that was the exception we talked about earlier that will
We got that.
create the language.
Thank you.
So, so the motion is to introduce the ordinance with these directed changes. It will come back then for adoption. We'll bring back a clean and a red line version so that you see exactly what the changes are. So if you're not comfortable with it, then we can amend it and recirculate it again for final approval.
Okay, and just so I'm clear, what are we changing on the affordable issue?
So there would be an exception based on if there's a cost factor for a below market rate housing project or certain other circumstances, and we'll have to define those.
All right, and that'll come back. Yeah.
We have to avoid.
And that should actually probably go to the Environmental Quality Commission too, I think, before, and then it can come back to us. Because I would like their input on that as well, if we're changing that.
Is that the request of the council?
I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah, that's my motion. But.
Okay, so then we're not introducing because we'll send it to them for their review and comment on the final form of the ordinance.
Yeah, that would be
and bring
helpful.
it back for introduction.
Can we just ask, I mean, do you think it's possible the Environmental Quality Commissioners can be alerted of this and give comment on it so we can introduce it but keep this moving forward? Because my guess would be they want progress on this as much as we do as quickly as possible. Yeah. So if we could introduce it now and then invite commissioners to give us comment in the interim, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'm as the maker of the motion, I'm fine with that because I see Janelle London nodding yes. So I'm fine with that.
I think I'm seconding then, right? That's where we are?
I think so.
Okay, I'm seconding this.
Oh, was there a question? Did you have a question?
No, I was just going to mention that we had anticipated bringing this back on 9/11. I don't believe the EQC meeting's until after that, so we'll be bringing back the ordinance.
Well, you're bringing it back here, what we just said. Bring it back here, and then the environmental quality commissioners can make comments on it.
Well, they really can't without potentially having a Brown Act issue with the EQC. So if you want the commission to comment on it, we need to send it to the commission.
Oh.
We can do the introduction, that's fine, but I would rather have them either, we don't want them reaching a consensus outside of a meeting and a
But they
Brown Act,
could, they could come here and tell us their feedback here. You could invite them all to say, hey, come and tell us what you think.
It's their individual opinion. It has nothing to do with the EQC, so any member of the public can come. They would not be coming as an EQC or commission, or you potentially get into a Brown Act issue, because they have to have a meeting of their body if they're going to collectively make a recommendation or a consensus on a position.
But what they could do is they could be notified that we were doing this, and if they wanted to have an emergency meeting, they could go ahead and have an emergency meeting to review it in the interim period.
Or we can just bring this back after the EQC meeting.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
all right.
I don't know what their next meeting date is. September
19th. Oh.
So that means it wouldn't come back until October 9th.
I think it's worth getting the EQC information on this. If it's another month, I think it won't. It's been a while, but I would like the EQC's comments on it.
Just on the policy of whether or not we're going to have an exception in place for affordable housing projects to go ahead and show that the cost is burdensome.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll take it to the EQC on October 9th. You're introducing it tonight. Take it to the EQC on October 19th and September 19th.
September 19th.
And then it'll come back to you on October 9th.
Great.
Okay, that's good.
Vote.
The motion passes unanimously.
All right, great.
Thank you, by the way,
Thank
for
you
all the
very
work.
much.
You guys have been great. You carried the subcommittee, really, so.
Okay. Now to regular business. Adopt resolution number 6459 to amend the city salary schedule. And here comes Administrative Services Director Lenka Diaz will present the report.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council members. The action before you tonight is similar to an action you took on at your August 6th meeting, approving an amendment to the city salary schedule. Before we get into the content of tonight's item, I just wanted to point out a couple of items with regard to salaries and staffing. Pardon me. Just that council does retain control over two items that are relevant to tonight's item. The first is setting salary limits by adopting the salary schedule. And the second is authorizing the number of full-time equivalent staff. So this action tonight does not increase the number of full-time equivalents. However, we are asking for a change to the city salary schedule. And the change that we're asking for is to add one job title with an assigned salary that's commensurate with the current division managers. And that salary is in line with council's approved compensation structure for unrepresented management that was approved in February of 2018. So the one change is to add the title of Deputy Community Development Director Housing. And that is similar, again, to the item we brought to you on August 6th, which is to just give us some more flexibility with the titles that we are recruiting for when we're going out to fill positions. So we currently have a Housing and Economic Development Manager vacancy. We've gone out for that recruitment and unfortunately was unsuccessful. So in talking with our executive recruiter and how we can be more successful the second time going out, this was the title that she felt would recruit the quality of candidate we're looking for, as well as talking internally and feeling that this is in alignment with our current structure in the Community Development Department and citywide. So, can I answer any questions?
Great, thank you. So and again, just to sort of paraphrase there, because I know this is the second time the schedule's come up to us in recent months, the key issue here is trying to make sure there's flexibility, particularly as you've gone through the recruiting and interview process. One example was as mentioned in the staff report, that couldn't find someone who was both a housing and economic development manager, which was the prior title for Jim Kogan. And so to give the city more flexibility, we have the different titles that you've listed in both the staff report and also in the salary schedule. They were added in, but the most important thing is this does not change the number of employees. This does not authorize more employees. What this does is it gives flexibility from a hiring standpoint to get the right title for the right candidate and try and get someone on board, whether it's a housing person or an economic development person, and gives you flexibility in title. Am I sort of paraphrasing the last couple of changes? So.
That's accurate.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions or comments? I'll just simply say that since I don't see any lights, is that I think we've had difficulty in trying to get candidates on board. We've had these positions open for some time, not just this particular one, but several ones, and to be able to provide you the flexibility, whether it's through titles or through the salary schedule, to be able to bring not just anybody, but the right talent aboard. It's really getting critical now, and I think we're all experiencing and seeing this. I don't think there's been an item tonight that's been raised that hasn't said that hasn't had some caveat about staff issues, like housing. The housing report talked about and I think our current and certainly our employees are doing a great job covering different assignments and filling in and doing that. But at this point, we've got to get the right people on board. And so if this gives you certainly the flexibility to do so and match the right title to the right applicant, I'm supportive of doing that. And again, it is with the very firm understanding that the total headcount is not changing by these actions or by the salary schedule, that we're still within our budget and approved budget for the year. Okay.
Well said.
Councilmember Klein?
With that, it was well said. I was going to make a motion that we adopt the resolution and amend the salary effective today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second it, and well said, Narutaki.
Okay. And while the screen says that I seconded it, I simply hit the button. But Councilmember Keith is the seconder on this, just for thanks. Okay, let's vote.
The motion passes 3-1 with Councilmember Mueller dissending.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Next, we have information items. Do we have any questions, Judy? Thank you, Linka, by the way. Appreciate it. Any
Speakers.
questions on the information items?
We do have public speakers.
We do have, okay. Here. Wait, my screen is changing. Okay, so I see Andrew Boone. If there's, I thought I saw Andrew here just a few minutes ago. He might have stepped out, paging Andrew Boone. All right, I don't see, okay, going once, going twice. All right, I don't see any, now I see, do we have my screen just popped up with some new.
That's for item I2.
Oh, I see, okay, for I2, here we go. Oh, I see, you were doing I1 and got it, okay, thank you. Sorry, it's late, I'm just catching up here. All right, item I2, let's see, we have a couple of speakers, Jen Willison first, followed by Karen Grove.
Good evening. I think some of the folks in public comment already addressed the 2 points I wanted to make. One is please don't delay Bellhaven's library issues. And 2, please use this as an opportunity to take a step back and talk about housing and public land. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Karen Grove, followed by Adina Levin.
I'll just say ditto to what Jen said, and I'll add a story. At our Housing Commission meeting when we last discussed the tenant relocation assistance policy, the tenants from the 2 properties that have recently been purchased by an investor showed up, and they talked to us about their rent doubling, even though they have rats and roaches and rot in the floor and a heater that doesn't work, and that they could not afford to continue to pay the rent that they are now paying because it went up like that, that many people have already moved out. And these were amazing people who I really want in our community. And tenant relocation assistance will prevent them from becoming homeless when they have to leave, but it won't help them stay. Affordable housing will help them stay. And so that's why I come up here every meeting that I can to ask for affordable housing at the library, on our public parking plazas. These are amazing people who we need to have in our community, and we also need to prevent them from being homeless with the tenant relocation assistance, but that's not enough. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Karen. Adina Levin, followed by Pamela Jones.
Good evening, council members. Adina Levin speaking as a Menlo Park resident. I would like to echo what Jen Willison and Karen Grove just said and add a little bit to that. So in the initial staff report on the item that is being proposed to be deferred, it had said that during the community feedback, there were significant numbers of comments in favor of affordable housing on the library site as part of the project, but there were also some people who expressed concern, and I've heard people express concern, well, why should public land be used by something that benefits, a certain set of private individuals and not the city as a whole, which is not the perspective that I have. I think that if the city has public land, that is all the more so to be able to provide at a lower cost housing that benefits our entire community, to keep people in the community, as Karen Grove said. But the reason given to accelerate and not consider it was the potential for delay. And now that there is, in fact, a proposal for this to be later, and there is time to engage in that housing conversation and the education that the Housing Commission is interested in providing on the topic of housing on public land, potentially other case studies where there are other libraries and public facilities that include housing on public land as part of the project. I think that the city should not simply move the same thing forward, which would basically equate to accepting the staff recommendation without discussing it, moving it forward and saying, well, it's even later, so we can't. I would encourage you to take the advantage of this time and that the Housing Commission's offer and have that community conversation between now and when the details of the library do come back. So I would urge you to take that strategy with the Housing Commission's support.
Thank you, Adina. Pamela Jones, followed by Lynn Bramlett.
Good evening, Mayor Otake, Mayor Pro Tem Mueller, council members Keith and Klein, as well as staff. My name is Pamela Jones. I'm a resident of Menlo Park, and I'm wearing my retired professor hat because I do support libraries. But I'm kind of unclear exactly what is being asked of the council tonight, since this is an information item. But if action is requested, I have the following recommendations. That is, 1, the Belhaven Library Needs Assessment include the letter from the Belhaven Neighborhood Library Advisory Committee members, and then that be finalized and approved. 2nd, that the Belhaven Space Study Needs Assessment move forward. 3, all other items for the main library be delayed until early 2019. And this includes releasing funding for the main library building schematic design. We've focused so much on moving forward quickly for fear of losing this donation that we have continued to make unnecessary mistakes. A rest and a fresh perspective in early 2019 will more than likely produce a plan that includes reasonable consideration for all expressed concerns, as well as funding for both libraries. Please consider citing outreach for the main library conducted by another firm that includes the needs of the child care center, removal of the old trees, the beautiful trees that we have out there that adorn our parking lot. I think there's either 18 redwood trees that considers that. The Menlo Park Historical Association, possibly having a historical museum, and all of the current and future needs of a library. Consider the main library siting between the gymnasium and the City Hall on Laurel Street. This site would not disrupt the child care center. The redwood trees would remain standing tall. Traffic impacts would be spread along the entire length of Laurel Street. The library services would not be interrupted until the big move-in. And the Alma Street site would be available for affordable housing, and we would have the time to get the details on how to build affordable housing on city property. I see affordable housing also critical because maybe that'll help us attract and maintain employees. We don't talk about affordable housing and people being able to live here, but I know that that's a challenge for anyone unless they're making a considerable amount of money. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Pamela. Lynn Bramlett, followed by Andrew Boone.
Good evening, everyone. About 2 or 3 years ago, I was selected to serve as a juror on a criminal trial. From the very beginning in the waiting room, where we saw an inspirational film about jury duty, to the judge's instructions, and then to our very direct role once we were selected. We got explicit instructions regarding not discussing the case with other jurors until the deliberation period. We were instructed to remain open-minded. And the judge also told us about the serious consequences should the jurors not abide by his instructions, not just for us, but to justice. Before the breaks, we heard these instructions repeated. Before release for the day, we were told not to discuss it. We were given guidelines with private communications. Of course, the defense and the prosecutor attorneys were always present and heard this. And when we finally got the case, we had a transparent discussion process that eventually resulted in our unanimous verdict. The court had rigor to ensure a fair trial toward the broader goal of justice. And I'm up here because I'm troubled about the Brown Act violation. And I'm not just troubled about that. I'm troubled about other things that show we need to take stronger measures in Menlo Park to ensure the public's trust in the decision-making process. Any psychologist will say once trust is lost, it's almost impossible to restore. And trust has definitely been lost in our local government. And so I'm here tonight to talk about measures that will help us to restore that trust. I think we need explicit guidelines for council member conduct in private encounters. A number of our neighboring cities have such details in their manuals. They have code of ethics, they have code of conduct that would cover the encounter, in the almanac and in the report, and some other matters that, we've been reading about in the newspaper or ones that I've learned about. So, such as lobbying calls to commissioners, maybe telling a candidate that person shouldn't run, things like that. I do also want to point out, I was at the Hayward meeting, and I did observe Councilmember Klein leave after a break in the proceedings. I think it was before the Q&A or during the middle, and Councilmember Keith follow him, where they talked outside for about 2 minutes, and I could see him from where I was sitting. So all these kind of give rise, given the context, to what do we have here? So I have some very actionable suggestions. I'll be writing you with them. We need to take trust seriously. Thank you.
Okay. Andrew Boone, followed by Rachel Horst.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Boone. I live on Woodland Avenue in East Palo Alto. I was disappointed that this item, this library report, wasn't on your agenda last week, or the meeting was canceled. But I don't agree that things working as they should. If there's an inadvertent Brown Act violation, which happens once in a while, it was in the paper and it was in a staff report, and it says exactly what happened, and what happened wasn't egregious. So I'm satisfied with this. Unfortunately, we delay learning more about and discussing more about the library, but that, in my opinion, is all. Regarding the library, I think you're trying to take advantage of the donation from Mr. Arriaga is the right thing, but it has brought up a big question of why didn't we make efforts to put proper library in Belhaven? Why Belhaven? Because it's separated from the rest of the city by a giant wall, Highway 101. It's really not easy for residents on the other side of the highway to come to the library here, even though the library here is good quality. You need a library there of equal quality, and that would benefit residents of the city I live in, East Palo Alto, as well, because the same situation applies for us. We have a library, it's small. It would be great to have access to another library, hopefully a better one. So I think what you're doing is right. Having the needs assessment, doing that as soon as possible is what should happen, because I would like to see the donation from Mr. Arriaga for a new library here be packaged with financing for a new library in Belhaven. If you can't get Mr. Arriaga to donate for it, perhaps donations from somewhere else or from the city would be appropriate, but we're not even to the step of saying what kind of library do we want in Belhaven. So getting over that hurdle soon would be very good. That side of the highway, as I say, we lack this service. I live on this side of the highway, so I'm lucky that I can go down Newell Road to the Rinconada Library in Palo Alto and use that good library facility and not have to cross the highway to go to East Palo Alto's smaller library. But for everyone else on the other side of the highway, we just basically don't have good library services, and we should. I would really like to see new library built here on the Laurel Street and have the existing library site be available to build affordable housing on it. Because that's ideal because it's city-owned property and you can control everything about the development. It's a rare chance that you will have someday to redevelop. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Rachel, good evening. Welcome. Rachel Horst.
Hello, my name is Rachel Horst, and I'm speaking for myself as an individual. I would like to echo the many words that came before me this evening, including those by Pamela Jones most recently, and also by Andrew Boone about not delaying the discussion about the Belhaven library and the Belhaven needs assessment. But on this library and the delay that has come up, I appreciate the council wanting to have or having a vision for the library and for Menlo Park's future, and I appreciate all the work that has gone into that. I was at the library siting meetings, and so I know all about it, and I know that there was a lot of ambivalence, and that this is going to be on the part of residents, and that this is going to be a pretty big lift no matter what happens. And as far as I was concerned, whether it was on at the Laurel side or the Alma side, the jury was kind of still out, so I was surprised to see that in the staff report. But at any rate, with regards to the housing, I really believe this could be a yes and situation. This is not an either or situation. And so maybe the silver lining of this delay is to go back and revisit that. I don't wish to rehash the words of the others that have already spoken, but the fact is, city-owned land is one of our only opportunities to invite the development of affordable housing that is so sorely needed. And just broadly speaking, in every conversation we have about big-ticket items in this city, it has to involve a discussion of housing because that's the point that we're at. And housing may not be what we want to think about when we're thinking about libraries because, that's a public good. But at this point, circumstances dictate that we talk about housing in just as universal a way, and specifically affordable housing. And so I would just encourage you, universally speaking, when we approach projects like this, to think about housing. And we happen to have, Civic Center smack in the middle of a downtown area with access to amenities and transit. There happens to also be a library. So I don't believe these are mutually exclusive potentials for the future of this city. So now that we're experiencing delays for reasons beyond our control and also because of staffing limitations, we should just go back to the beginning of this conversation. And I just want to echo again the words of the others to bring housing back into this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel. All right, I'll come up here. And Bill, I just want to, one of the questions from, I think, Pamela Jones, what is being asked of us tonight? As I understand it, this is really an information item. And really, we're not going to debate. We're not going to talk about the library tonight. This was the whole point of the staff report was that will be delayed. And there's not guidance that's specifically being requested, correct?
Yeah, so we're, after the Brown Act issue came up and kind of what to do about that meeting, and we concluded that it was best to cancel the meeting while I kind of looked in, came up with kind of a approach. Then Alex and I talked about when could this come back, and looking at the number of meetings between now and the end of the year and the items on the various meetings, the fact that there's a council election in November and there will be at least one new member on the council, that it made sense to bring this back when there was a new city council. And so we really didn't have any discussion about separating the items within that report and the direction. And I don't know, Alex knows more about whether or not how those could be separated, whether they could be. And then kind of added into all of that was the fact that we've lost and are losing people that would be potentially available to staff and deal with the workload. So that was the recommendation, that we come back in early 2019. or the indication that we intended to bring it back in early 2019. If the council wanted to direct something other than that to bring it back sooner, it certainly can do so, but I'm not sure how or when that would be done.
Councilmember Keith?
Yeah, I think just being on the subcommittee, and Pamela, thanks, you're at all our meetings in Bellhaven on the library subcommittee as well. I would echo what Pamela Jones was saying about keeping that going. And we worked hard on the subcommittee to come up with a letter that we sent to council on the needs assessment, and it's done. And so I think it would be beneficial to accept that and keep that process going. And I will say also that I know that there will be money to come forward for that library, and I am in touch with prominent developers who are interested in making that happen. So I don't think that we need to delay it, but we should probably accept the letter and the needs assessment and have that be done.
Yeah, and I would call this really guidance, right? I mean, because we do provide guidance on information items. I do think, but
I mean, you can direct it to come back and what to come back and when.
I think it's the Bellhaven Library is the question, is keeping that on track, keeping that moving forward. And so whether that's something, Alex, that you'd like to bring back as an information item or just...
So procedurally, the council would need to accept the report and direct us to move to the space needs analysis, the next level. And that was teed up for the meeting on the 21st, or last Tuesday. Since then, though, there's new information about staffing and capacity that is just starting to bombard us. Our library director retires next month, and our city engineer leaves in 2 weeks, and our traffic engineer, deputy public works director is gone as of yesterday. And so what we're finding is what projects remain, what projects stall. And I'm not suggesting we should stall this one, but I think the council needs to have a collective conversation about the entire work plan, which we intended to bring back on the 19th. No, next council meeting. Sorry, I forget what date it is. Because we do need really some reprioritization of all the projects, of which this would fall into that. Does that make sense?
Okay, I understand that. Vice Mayor Mueller.
Yeah, so number one, just to clarify, Bill, you found there was an inadvertent Brown Act violation. You found there was an inadvertent Brown Act violation? Yes. Okay. There is no more action required regarding that Brown Act violation by the council beyond this report out tonight?
Correct.
The one thing that, and then this is being pursuant to what's been said to us, this is being postponed until January. And so what I think the council should consider is whether or not we need to reappoint a new library subcommittee, because obviously Councilmember Klein won't be with us in January. And the work will be done. So do we want to wait until November, or is that something we'll want to do like sooner? What'd you say? Because there also is a discussion too about, I think it's appropriate to discuss the scope of the library subcommittee. Because frankly, I got contacted by people throughout the county who said they received letters asking them to come to the meeting to offer their support for moving forward. And I'm not sure that's within the scope of of what I understood the library subcommittee would be doing. I thought it was framing the issue for council consideration, not advocating a position and trying to lobby support for it. So I think it's appropriate to talk about appointing the subcommittee to how we're going to move forward, and also really just so, and I'm not trying to be critical of that, but what I'm trying to say is we should have a very specific frame going forward so that as we move forward transparently with this process, whatever it may be, it is well defined for the public, because there will be a higher level of scrutiny on this project moving forward. And that's what I've been, way back when, what we indicated was we want a very transparent timeline of where we're going and how we're getting there. So that would be my only request is if we're appointing, if we're going to appoint a new subcommittee, we do it too, and we try to put together a timeline of what that looks like. And I wanted to, before I close, thank Councilmember Klein for his work on the subcommittee, because he's not going to obviously see the fruition of that before he leaves council, whatever that may be. So.
So I just noticed, and Judy alerted me, there is one more public comment that I didn't see earlier, and why don't we take it just real quick. Sokini C, did I get that correct? Okay.
My name is Sakni Sai.
My apologies for...
Some of you guys might know me. I work for the IT department for the city of Menlo Park. I've been an employee for a year now, and been truly blessed to be working for the city. The reason why I'm here standing before you is there's something important that I want you guys to hear about, and that's housing. I currently live in East Palo Alto, but I would love to live here in Menlo Park. It's a little challenging for me right now, even though I think I make decent money. Looking at Craigslist ads and other things, it's a little bit tough to come about. So I just wanted to let you guys know, I hope you guys are continue to fighting for someone like me, others who don't speak up, who would love to have the opportunity to be a part of this community and to give back little by little. And I think, representing myself, I have a pretty unique family, and I think you guys would welcome us with open arms if that opportunity arises. So just wanted to say that and continue to fight for affordable housing. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much. And we absolutely do welcome you, so yeah, definitely, thank you. So I think, Alex, what you proposed, where we're going to go through the work plan and items.
Correct.
I think that makes sense because we got to do that anyway on this and a variety of issues, reprioritize. On the item about the subcommittee, and in December when we seat the new council, we will be doing committee assignments, and as much as and certainly would love to get every minute of Rich Klein that we have up till December. But in addition to that, I also want to make sure that the new council can select, and I think that's probably the appropriate time. I don't think we would be missing anything by having the committee selection done as part of our regular committee assignments. But very much, Alex, definitely endorse your recommendation of coming back with the work plan, and I think you've heard some pretty good public comment tonight about it. But and I would concur that, I think we should look at the Belhaven, separate and basically look at them as two pieces. So, okay.
So noted.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you, everyone. And I don't think there are any more questions. I don't see a city manager's report. Let's see. Oh, Andrew Boone. Andrew, you had put in a card to talk about the investment portfolio. Did you have a comment on that? Because we were asking for you and we missed you at that point in time. But
Yes, I was outside at the moment. My name is Andrew Boone. I just wanted to comment that I believe your investment portfolio includes fossil fuels. The city has not made a step to divest from companies that invest in fossil fuel extraction or refining. And that's a step you should consider. It has been discussed by the council in Palo Alto over the several past years. They haven't taken the step either, but they had declared it as a goal to, as part of the climate action plan, as part of a way to reduce, our tax dollars going into more fossil fuel production. That's all. Thank you.
okay, thank you, Andrew. And I will mention that from being on the Finance Audit Committee, the investment portfolio is generally pretty liquid type, short-term liquid securities, things that are like treasuries, that are different types of securities that tend not to be like stocks. This is not a long-term portfolio. But having said all that, I will make sure that when we have the Finance Audit Committee meeting that I think we have coming up, that we'll follow up to make sure. But that's and I know I've looked at the portfolio a couple of times, but we'll make sure to follow up on it because I think that's a very good question. So, certainly I don't believe we hold any. Well, yeah, and that's a very good point. Councilmember Klein brings up, just if they're also to double check, make sure there's not a fund or something, but I'm pretty sure that the guidelines that we have for our investment portfolio are quite conservative about what we can from a safety standpoint. So anyway, with that, do we have any council member reports?
I just have a brief one from Bosca.
Okay, Councilmember Keith.
The Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency. There's been a Bay Delta plan that has been talked about, and so I just wanted to highlight that Nicole Sankula issued a statement from Bosca August 23rd saying that the California Natural Resources Agency and its Department of Water Resources and Fish and Wildlife, and from the State Water Resources Control Board, which is the state board, strongly endorse a voluntary settlement for water quality improvements in the Bay Delta, including the Tuolumne River, to provide a reliable water supply for people and businesses, as well as benefits to fish. So there was some controversy about this, and so what's happening now is that there will be voluntary settlement negotiations that'll go on. And this was discussed at their state board meeting August 21st, so August 21st and 22nd. And they're asking for time until mid-November to look at this, and then it will probably come back to us at some point after that.
But this is not the tunnels project, or is it the?
This is not the tunnels project. This is a totally different, the Bay Delta for, regarding the flow.
Allocation of flow.
Yeah,
okay.
on the Tuolumne River.
Got it.
Yep. So I just wanted
Thank
to update you with that.
Okay. Any other? Okay, with that. So, Alex, when is our next? Sorry.
September 11th.
September 11th. All right. So we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.